Hello.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to
Hello,
Time Theft
time.
Today.
Hello, time thieves.
Yes, what job are you not doing today?
What job are you
Let
not
us
doing right
know.
now?
Let us know in the chat. And congrats, KPPK, on top surgery.
Yeah, holy
Yeah,
shit. That's
that's so
amazing.
exciting. Uh, uh, Liquid Snake voice, brothers.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Dishes, not doing dishes. That's a good one. Not teaching
Yeah.
people about science.
Fuck yeah. Keep them in the dark.
They don't get to know.
They don't need to know.
Working from home, quote unquote.
Yes, not working from home. We love it. Ugh, good shit. Anarcho Hobbitist said, I finally got around to really sitting with the culture questions from last week and considering them, and it was such a cool exercise. I really enjoyed thinking critically about it the last few weeks. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
I've enjoyed thinking about it too and seeing people's thoughts.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, and we have a ton more questions to go through. Um so we'll see how far we got one more submission. Um and yeah, I guess if people are watching this and they didn't catch the last one, we did a whole conversation last week about based on a Tumblr discussion that Devin was part of, and basically like as the title of the stream says, like do Westerners have a culture? How do whiteness and imperialism destroy culture? And we talked the whole 3 hours about it last week, and we didn't finish our list of questions. So we're gonna do that more. So, and you're more than welcome to participate and join along as we go through these
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, so if you want to catch the first half of the conversation, it's archived here, and it's also the VOD is also on our YouTube. So you can check that out. But basically, the conversation was born out of um, talking about cultural assimilation that white people do, and also the searching to like reconnect with their ancestry that not only white people do, but it is a very white thing to be like, oh, I'm reconnecting with my German ancestry, by enacting German traditions from 300 years ago when my
Right.
family's been living here for that long. Um, this all of these things that people do to try and fill the gap that they feel, this lack of a culture that they have. And these questions come from somebody who was pushing back on Tumblr, who was kind of saying, you can't really say that you don't have a culture. Everybody has a culture. Um, the Dread Vampy on Tumblr is their name. And they were saying, your culture might feel like it's the normal standard because of white supremacy and things like that, or because of capitalism, but everybody has a culture. So here are some questions that help you kind of identify what your culture is. Um, and if you don't like the answers to those questions because a lot of white culture, quote unquote, um, the dominant culture under capitalism basically kind of sucks in a lot of ways, then we can use these questions to think about what we want culture to actually be instead as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah. Um
yeah.
Yeah, hope you recover well from COVID, Mayvalence. If people get your boosters, it's real bad right now.
Yes. And take it easy to lessen the odds of the long COVID. Um
Yeah, absolutely have spent every day since last week telling myself I've failed this form out, and now it's Friday, and I'm tired. The fuck. Happy Friday, gamers. Yeah, I have literal diagnosed sleepy bitch disease, so I feel you.
yes.
And I don't think the author of Laziness Doesn't Exist is gonna be mad that you didn't do your stream homework. It's okay if you didn't do
No.
it.
No.
We didn't. I didn't either. I said I was gonna read the chat from last week and I didn't. I'm sorry. That would have been a lot
Well,
of work and I didn't do it.
the written word is evil. So it's good you kept yourself pure. But no, yeah. Um we'll talk through each of these, and it's really fun to have people add their reactions to each question in the
Yeah.
chat and kind of chat through it. So no prior studying is by any means necessary. Uh,
I still think it would be interesting to see these two, like especially if you're like watching the VOD and you are interested in the discussion. I think it could be still fun if you do want to do it. I don't think you should like don't limit yourself to just because this is a VOD and you can't participate anymore. I think it still would be interesting to see these submissions in either in the Discord or in our Ask boxes. I'm not sure if we'll do more of a discussion about it, but we still would love to see it and still interesting to do. So don't feel bad if you
yes.
like missed. Don't feel like you missed it. Don't feel any FOMO or anything.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Everybody has a really unique positionality with regard to this stuff, so everybody's responses are really add a layer to the conversation. So feel free to leave it in the comment or the Discord at any point in time. And I should clarify, like I was talking and explaining this, talking a lot about whiteness, but like a lot of these struggles are things that any group of people who they've had to deal with assimilation with trying to blend in with the white dominant majority due to imperialism, a lot of these experiences of kind of losing cultural feeling like you've lost cultural ties and wanting to rebuild them, but then not being sure what it means to participate in a culture in that way. Like a lot of people are sharing that of a variety of different backgrounds. This stuff fucks up everybody's
Yeah,
life and community ties. Um, and yeah, any particular experiences or viewpoints you have on this stuff to share is so welcome. And it's been especially really cool to hear the reactions of people who don't have this experience, who are
yeah.
like, you know,
I think
yeah,
the thing that we talked about last week is really that like imperialism and whiteness and patriarchy and all of those different like dominant cultures are really destructive and they like kind of touch people everywhere. Like I think obviously this is a discussion that we're having as like, you know, two white people in America. But like it's definitely something that through imperialism and shit touches everywhere and it's whether and in the ways that it's not like you're not if you're not impacted by it in certain ways, it's interesting to hear that too. So yeah,
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And culture is always changing, culture is always evolving. That's also kind of part of the point of the questions I think that the Dread Vampy was trying to make, that wherever you are right now, that is your culture. But at the same time, it is very true that like even if you've stuck to certain recipes or certain practices, if like a colonial power burned down all your olive trees, that's going to impact your cuisine, right? Like or whatever.
yeah.
So there's a loss there, no matter your proximity or distance to whiteness and stuff like that. So yeah.
So yeah, we can start with the we got through some of these questions. I feel like we kind of bounced around a little bit, so this might not be exactly right to what we talked about last week, but this is basically where we got. Um, so leaving, we were kind of talking about what holidays do you celebrate and how. I don't know if we want
Mhm.
to. That's kind of where we were at, so I don't know if we want to like talk more about that or if we finished that conversation last week and move on. But that's yeah,
Yeah, that's roughly where we wound up. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I don't know if I have anything more to add to that one in particular. I know where we kind of left off was talking about people were sharing, like, new holidays that they've kind of created and new traditions. If there's somebody who kind of similar to a monster's comment in the chat, like, if you were raised without any kind of faith tradition or you've distanced yourself from, let's say, Christianity for a lot of reasons, you might have to kind of reinvent for yourself, holiday traditions. Um
yeah. We can read the some of the ones in the responses in the Discord to that question just to wrap it up because I don't know
Sure.
if we did. Um, Cookie,
Yeah.
Yes, Cookie said we celebrated the major American holidays, but in most consumers' way. My grandparents shared zero traditions. My mom mostly treated holidays as a burden, where she was required to perform cooking a turkey for my father. We attended church regularly, so Easter and Christmas were always marked with sermons about how much it's a shame that some people only come at Easter and Christmas gets old year after year. Just let people be there. Traditions that we did have were largely Christian, which was largely traumatic, and therefore I have no interest in continuing those traditions. Quitting church was one of the best things I ever did, which I think is probably going to be I think being a queer, mostly queer group of people, I think that's probably not super unique for our particular crowd because, yeah, that's how it be, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody who has a Christian background, there's almost always some complexity there.
I,
Um,
I feel like I have Christmas is an interesting thing to talk about with this because I like like we talked about last time, like I was very much raised like not atheist but like without any kind of religion, but um Christmas was something that was one of the few things that we celebrated to some degree, and I think that I'm not sure what there is to talk about, but I do think there's something interesting to talk about, being that Christmas being one of the few holidays that we really go very far into in like white, like dominant American culture, um and that being completely divorced from the religious nature of it almost, but it also being like it's hard for me I think it's hard for me to remember that it is a Christian thing and that it can feel like I feel like I have this sort of like I want to be like I listen to the Flophouse, which is a podcast, and one of the hosts is Jewish and complain, and they do like it's funny because they like do Christmas movies during Christmas, but he always complain
mhm.
like it's his show and he still does it, but he also complains about the like the like hold that Christianity has and like on a dominant American culture, and it's like I totally understand it, but there's also part of me that's like, but it's not. I don't see it as Christian, even though I do understand logically that it is, and it is like not within the most people's faith traditions that are not in Christianity. Um, I don't know. I don't think I have a specific point. But I do think it's indicative of the larger thing that we're talking about, and I don't know.
Right. It feels like the default to you, and so it feels
Right.
neutral because of
Right.
those things. But if you are othered by being Jewish or Hindu or anything else, like then it's like, oh well, no, this is an actual thing. It's not just the
Yeah.
water you're swimming in. Yeah.
Absolutely. And especially it feels default because I don't celebrate it as a Christian thing. I celebrate it
Mhm.
as like purely a consumerist thing. Um which is another weird thing. It's like, the things that were Christian, not that I want them to be more Christian, um but uh they've been totally subsumed by just pure capitalism. It's
Yeah.
weird.
Well, I wonder, like, I would imagine, like, thinking about, like, ancient Christianity, right? That was, like,
Right.
way more of this, like, socialist, like, community-oriented thing, like, I assume that Easter was a bigger holiday because it
Presumably.
has a lot more symbolic importance, I think, like, the forgiveness of everyone than just, like, the birth of one person. So I think even where Christianity is today is, like, an illustration of the stuff we're talking about, of, like,
Yeah.
um, capitalism and the state and just all of these like forces and imperialism just like swallowing up things and then regurgitating them in a completely different new way that strips a lot of the original meaning
And it's
of it.
interesting because Christianity stole Christmas in the first place. Like Christianity
Mhm.
comes from Yule, right? Like which is a pagan tradition which it subsumed in order to because paganism was really popular in the places you know, it was like the more popular than Christianity as it began. I don't know all the details, but my understanding is that like basically like Christmas was a thing that was most of, especially like the tree and all the stuff is like very
Hmm.
Saturnalia. Yeah, like they basically took pagan traditions and sort of took them over and made and Christianized them in order to like be easier for people to convert. Is my understanding.
Right. Yeah, it's this assimilation double whammy where you kind of
Right.
say, "This is ours now." So actually, even if you just practice your ancestral practices that you're used to, you're actually practicing Christianity because 'cause we're
Right.
claiming that. Or the only way to access those things anymore is through Christianity.
Christmas overtook Yule and Saturnalia to an extent, though it wasn't an intention. It wasn't intentional on the part of the church. I don't think, says that Callisto. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, cool people who did cool stuff as a fun episode on the history of Christmas. That probably is good. That's the by the one of the, at least one of the people that do bastards. What is it? Something
Behind the
bast.
Bastards
Yeah, yeah.
or Beyond the Bastards, yeah.
Yeah. I've heard it's good, but I haven't listened.
Roy Christmas says, "I feel kinda similar despite my family being mostly Muslim. We did not care for Jesus and just used it as an occasion to spend time together. There is also an assimilation aspect because my mom did not want us to feel left out."
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of non-Christian, because obviously there are Christian East Asian people, but, like, Chinese families, that live in the US, for example, that it's just people adopt those practices because, hey, your kids are out of school and you have the day off work anyway, and you want your kids to blend in, and kids are gonna be asking about it anyway, so then you just start practicing it,
Yeah.
and that's both assimilationism and it's just, like, cultural participation, cultural exchange,
Mm-hmm.
there's elements of it that are just totally cool and normal. If you're living in a new country, you start to practice more of the practices of that country, like, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's when it's this, like, enforced thing from the
Right.
top down that it gets tricky.
Right.
Yeah.
Um.
Think in Japan, eating KFC is a Christian thing, or not a Christian thing, a Christmas thing,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
which is
I
great. It's
I
fun.
definitely I was literally just thinking this year because it was this year. Usually, my stepmom or not stepmom, mother-in-law. Well, well, that's a different thing. My mother-in-law will usually like cooks when we do like we go over there and on Christmas Day and she does a lot of the cooking and she didn't really want to do as much this year and I was like we should definitely celebrate it on a day other than Christmas and just get KFC because
Mhm.
that sounds easy.
That sounds great, and I've definitely noticed this might be like a micro generational thing, I don't know how much it's a trend, but, like, Christmas as the day itself mattering feels like it's
Yeah.
really disintegrated in recent years, like, certainly in my family, people just come to visit at different points throughout the winter in general, like, sometimes people celebrate Christmas, like, some uncles of mine come to Cleveland to celebrate Christmas with my grandmother in, like, November, like, the days are, like, all over the place, and, um, a friend of mine who just had a kid was very like, "We're not gonna do a big Christmas." She, like, told her parents, the grandparents, like, "You can come over from 2 to 4 PM because that's when she's in between her naps, and then you're gonna go home. We're not gonna disrupt the routine that I fought so hard for to make Christmas some big deal."
Right.
So it seems like that I don't know, maybe I don't know how much that's a thing that's happening, but
For me it's just like I mean I do all the major holidays with like both my parents and my spouse's parents so we have to like um negotiate that um
Mhm.
so it's like yeah like it can only be with one of them on the day of so it's like somebody's got to lose out and then my uh brother-in-law also has the same dance with his girlfriend and so um I'm not sure if that has historically been different, but that's how it is in my family, and seems like just like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, as a kid, we definitely had, like, Christmas Eve, you go with this grandparent, Christmas Day, you do in the morning, you do Santa or whatever, and then Christmas Day night, you go to the other grandparent, like, it was very, like,
Hmm.
parceled out for a long time. Um, Photo said, "I know a lot of people who swap off who they visit each year." I know, yeah, I know some relatives who do that too, they alternate.
Anarcho Habitus said, growing up, aside from Christmas, football was the main catalyst for traditions. We had people over every Sunday during football season to watch football and had crabs and TV outside in the fall. I'm in Maryland, and then chili in the winter. I don't like football or the NFL, but I do miss those traditions and gatherings, and I am considering how to replicate that in my life now. I do think for, I think that's an interesting kind of axes to this whole thing that I think probably both of us. I think that probably is a huge axis of culture that is pretty dominant in like mainstream white American, not solely, but like that culture is sports, in which I don't think
Mhm.
is a huge way in which I think both of us don't participate in. Um, did you participate? What's your relationship with sports like now and growing up?
Yeah, I'm glad this came up because it really is, like, an anchor for, um marking the seasons and the passage of time in
Yeah.
American culture, and I'm sure soccer is a similar way for Europeans, in some ways. But it's like fall is when, I have come from a big football family, big Steelers fan family, and so Sundays were definitely a time people would come together and watch the game, usually Sundays, if that was happening. And then it would kind of flow into after football season ended into watching Cavs basketball games, almost as just like a replacement or a way to kind of keep up that tempo. And then baseball, it's impossible because there's just too many fucking baseball games to do that. Um, so it was, I think, almost more of an excuse to see each other regularly. Um, and that is something that I did like. I liked the Super Bowl because of the commercials. That was an exciting thing, and Super Bowl parties were kind of fun because people would bring lots of interesting dips, layered dips and chips and things like that. So I
Yeah.
actually
Is that a
do like
Midwest
that.
thing? Is that a Midwest? Is the dip specifically a Midwest thing? I'm curious because I've been to
I
like one or two, and that is a thing for sure. But and it's a very good thing. But
I think it probably is, and this is kind of similar, like, in the Discord, Photo was talking about how casseroles get a unfair bad rep,
yeah.
and they were originally a signature dish for a lot of, like, fancy hotels and stuff. I feel that way about dips, like, I will be a booster for Midwest dips, like a buffalo chicken dip, oh my god.
Okay, so we Megan actually found started very much in the like before COVID, and we're trying. I feel like we're trying to get it back, but we like I don't know, started to fall into a rhythm where we were going to places like potlucky events for the first time, like as a couple, and like needing to bring things. And so Megan found some things, and the thing that they found, and that we one of among other dips, like they have a bunch of dips now that in kind of their repertoire that are really good, but one of them was a fucking Frank's Red Hot like
Oh,
recipe. Like literally it was on either on a bottle at one point or just like on the website, and it was a Frank's Red Hot buffalo chicken dip, and that shit fucking slapped so
uh,
goddamn hard.
I love a dip. Photo mentioned in the chat that they had never seen a hot dip until they came to the Midwest. We love a
What?
hot dip
That's
here.
wild.
I love a spinach artichoke dip. In my family, we even will make, like, dessert dips. Like, there's this, like, fruit dip that my family makes
Ooh.
for, like, barbecues and stuff. More in the summer, that's marshmallow fluff, cream cheese, and lemon juice,
Oh
and you
fuck,
just dip
dude.
fruits in that.
I've
And for
never
Christmas
I'm familiar with that kind of like sweet marshmallow bullshit, Midwestern bullshit. I've never had it, but it sounds so good.
Oh, I'll make you one. That's one of the few things I can bring to a potluck that I'm like, "Yes, I'm confident in this." And in recent years, my aunt has started making this Christmas dip that is literally an entire box of zebra cakes blended with cream cheese and vanilla. So it's like liquefied zebra cake. And then you dip that in like whatever, a vanilla wafer or something like that. It fucking goes so hard. And you put sprinkles on it on top, of course. So it looks festive. It's
That's
so
fucking
good.
nuts. That's
it's
ridiculous, but it sounds
it's
amazing.
it's real good. I love it. It's just so wild because it's like, you know that thing, the meme that it's like talking about spaghetti where it's like you wet the dries and then you dry the wets and then you dry the wets and you whatever.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Right, cuz you have you get the dry noodles wet and boil them, and then you dry them from that, and then you wet them with the sauce, and then you dry them with the powder cheese, and yeah, right.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, Stacy's in the chat. Christmas tree zebra cakes. That's right. Yeah, you start with the Christmas tree zebra cakes, of course, because it would not be Christmas otherwise.
Right.
Uh, yes. Uh, good shit.
I do enjoy that we can't go. It's like hard. I feel like food is such a central thing to talking about this stuff. Like it's hard to escape talking about food, partly because it's good, but it's also like it seems so central. Like I imagine universally, uh, it's such a central part of it. Um,
hmm Especially because, like, kind of going into some of the later questions, like in especially white Christian whatever culture, like it's not like people come together to do, like something like a powwow where people do like a dance together or they have a bunch of different, they raise money by putting money on the blanket. Like there's all these different things that you do. It's like nah, we're gonna be in front of the TV eating something. Like that
yeah.
every holiday is basically being in front of the TV eating something. And that's not
Mhm.
bad. I think it's doesn't feel like it's enough sometimes, hence the like hole in people's lives. But like at the same time, as like a weekly ritual, like, oh, let's watch some football and eat some wings. Like that's great. And
Yeah.
that is something that when I went to Ohio State, I participated in pretty heavily because that's just what you do. And like,
Yeah, that's interesting. So
that's
I
the
was gonna,
culture.
so to go back to the sports stuff, it's interesting to me because I totally wasn't. I was like, that's another way in which my family was very non-traditional in that. I mean, and this opens up another big thing. That I could go in a lot of tangents about, but my parents were very kind of counterculture themselves. My mom was definitely like so much of a hippie that she would never have described herself that way. Like she didn't even really realize. She almost went to. The story is that she was trying to go to Woodstock 1971 or what
Hmm
and but she couldn't get a ride.
Yeah.
She definitely got arrested at least once for being on the street looking like a hippie, like literally no other
Really?
reason. Yeah.
That's
Uh, um.
that's against the law?
Yeah. um. But and my dad, conversely, was not really a hippie, but he was definitely a fucking early weeb. He apparently he like my parents actually met in Aikido, which is like a whole tangent I could go into that bears uh discussion on topic of culture, but he was very much a weeb. He got into Aikido in like the 80s, and I remember him talking about like watching Akira when it first came into the US. He's like really into anime, which is weird for being a boomer, and I think
Mhm.
has been since like anime came to the US in general. He's the one that got me into anime in any respect. But the point being for sports is that he's a fucking nerd and a weeb and always like sci-fi and all that shit. And has always been anti-sports. Like he's like classic
Yeah.
fucking nerd. Like I don't like fucking sports. So it's
I'm
like that was.
oppressed for being a nerd kind of
Yeah, he
thing.
never got quite that far, but like definitely that. Yeah, he's very much like I don't want to talk about sports.
Mhm.
So
I think the Aikido thing is worth talking about too, because I feel like that is a
yes,
part of like micro like city culture also for you too. But yeah,
yes.
sorry to cut you off. Yeah.
No, 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 absolutely. I think it's worth talking about, and I'm curious. I'm curious other people's experiences with martial arts or things like it. Um, but yeah, that's a interesting way in which I feel like very removed from sports because like not only did I never even like I rejected it I definitely purposefully rejected it as I became like a teenager and adult of like because I was like, well, I'm an alt kid and I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna get into sports are stupid, sports ball and all. Um,
Right, yeah.
but it also wasn't a rejection of my parents. Like I just never experienced it, so I like have I've been to one sports game, and that was I went to a baseball game at the old Tiger Stadium in Detroit, and that was specifically
Mm,
because my dad was like, well, they're gonna tear it down, and so we should go so you can say that you've been to the old one, um, which was and all I remember of that is that the structure was cool, but I couldn't see the field at all, and I was there for hot dogs.
yeah. Those old stadiums, literally at the Cubs stadium here, like, some of the seats, there's a post literally in front of the whole seat. You
Yeah,
just can't see anything. Like,
yeah.
it's
It
like,
was
"Okay,
a
cool."
little bit like that. Um, so yeah, I think that that's definitely been a like a hole in my kind of cultural understanding, and definitely a thing where it's like, um, I don't know. I think I could probably appreciate. I've always said if I had a partner who really wanted to get me into sports, I could see myself getting into sports, but someone would have to want to like I wouldn't do it on my own volition. Someone would have to want to do it, and I would not protest. I'd be like, "Sure."
You need, like, a hockey lesbian.
Yes.
That shit's good. Like, I went to so many hockey games at OSU because it was one of the free women's hockey was free to go to, and it was so lit, like,
Yeah.
hockey owns. There are redeemable things to sports, even though I was a very, like, anti-sport kid because I had, special ed gym class trauma, and so I hated anyone who could do anything with their body, um,
Yeah.
but but there are some cool things to certain sports,
Uh
um
Ann Arbor actually has an extremely strong like a nationally ranked quite highly nationally ranked uh uh lesbian sport fucking oh god
roller derby or
yes, thank you, roller derby team. Like they are, I think,
mm.
top 10 in the country or something like that, in Ann Arbor. And so I've been to a game, and I actually Megan, somebody that like worked with Megan, uh like saw me a couple times. Like we didn't even properly meet. They saw me a couple times, and I think emailed Megan through the work email to be like, "Does your wife want to be on the roller derby team?"
Oh my god, that's so funny. You were
It's
fucking roller derby
it
cruised.
really was. Um, I
Assigned roller derby.
yeah, before my health issues, I think I could have been good at it, but I would have been afraid. I'm just large and fairly strong. So, and also that team is just like it's crazy expensive, and it's like you have to like practice like 4 times a week or something. It's like
Oh,
insane.
man. That's
Um
nuts.
yeah, and like I would never hack it with the amount of practice that
That'd
they
be
needed.
such a good style moment for you,
I
though.
know. I know.
Especially since you said you like the kind of, like, fuckboy,
Yeah, fuck boy.
sapphic style, like,
I
get you
know.
some knee pads and some little thing some little socks. Oh my god.
I
Little hat.
know.
Oh,
If if there was
maybe
a
one day.
if there was a super fucking if there was a super fucking casual team around,
Intramural.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be into it, but hell no. Um
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, I haven't really been reading the chat. I'm interested to see where chat's at with sports ball.
Yeah. It really is, I'm glad we circled back to holidays because it was kind of a glaring omission now that I'm thinking about it. When we talk about holidays in America,
Yeah.
sports are holiday.
Growing up, Photopotamus says, growing up for me, family gatherings were very gender segregated at family gatherings. The men folk read the paper and watched the news while the women made food and cleaned up afterwards. Yeah, that
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense. I've heard that a lot. in context. I've heard a lot of people talk about that specifically in context about being trans and like navigating that kind of, you know, either rejection from being crossing that boundary or crossing that boundary or whatever.
Yeah, that was something I was cognizant of this holiday because when I was younger, I was very like, I'm not going to help with anything because feminism, you know. But now it was like, oh shit, I want to help so I don't look like a piece of shit, you know.
Yeah,
So it's
now
funny how those things flip.
you don't want to be what is the classic phrase, the like leftist everywhere but the kitchen. Like what is the
Yeah,
leftist man that complain that is feminist except but doesn't do the dishes like.
right. Yeah, I want to live my praxis or whatever. I'm also just less dirty than I used to be. So
Yeah, we've heard stories on this show.
yeah, Stacy's gonna drag me in the chat. She went to the house of someone who was like a full-blown like hoarder, and then she said to me, "You know, I used to think like how you lived, Devin, was like super fucked up, but now I realize I guess you're just normal."
Oh, mood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roy Christmas says in the chat, talking about kind of other sports traditions. Sports is really complicated, a complicated thing for me. Soccer was a big thing in my family, but me being trans led to me not playing anymore. Going to
Yeah.
games live in big stadiums is such a blast, though. I love it, but the team my family followed was run into the ground by corrupt management, so it's not the same anymore. Um,
Yeah.
I can't even imagine like just just different sports, like especially like European football and how that must feel like this inter-country mayhem.
NFL is
That
bad, but
sounds cool.
FIFA is. I mean, FIFA is literally like using slavery and Dubai and shit. Like the few
Oh my
things that
god.
I've heard about FIFA is it's really fucking bad. It's extremely evil.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it, but the few little things I do know is it's pretty evil.
Damn. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, but like American football just looks so much worse
Yeah, yeah. I mean, American
physically.
football is definitely. I mean, that shit is like. I mean, it kills people. Like all. I mean, how many teenagers get killed from fucking and younger people get killed from football is fucking nuts. And I think about this story about the guy that like he was like a football star and he like fucking killed his wife and kids, I think.
Mhm.
And then he was
Yeah.
like, and he left a note that was like, fucking scan my brain. And he had a horrible, like, his brain was all fucked up from repeated concussions. Like,
Yeah, it's so sad.
my understanding is it's actually, the helmets actually make it worse because you can hit harder with your head because you're wearing a helmet. Uh, yeah. So
Yeah.
rugby looks more dangerous because there's less protection, but actually like it's actually safer because you're not using helmets as a weapon.
Mm, that makes sense. Um, and speaking about this and like some of the rot in American culture. So Stacy, she works at a high school as an athletic trainer. So she meets some of these football parents, and there's so many kids who are only playing football because their parents make them and think
Yeah.
and like this is how you this is important. You have to do this to like be a man or whatever, or like these weird ideas that like this is the only way you're ever going to succeed is if you get a good football scholarship, and just the amount of pressure that they put on these kids who sometimes go to Stacy like faking an injury because they don't want to play, they don't want to be there, you know. um and then sometimes they do actually get injured and have to live with that for the rest of their life potentially.
I mean, we talked
um,
about baby Gronk. We talked about Gronk and how like
yeah, it's fucked up.
upsetting that shit that is actually.
It really is like kid influencer family influencer culture is really fucked up, and then you add onto that the pressure to like play a sport.
Yeah.
It's very fucked up.
So yeah,
Um,
that oh, go on. Go on.
oh no, go ahead. You go ahead.
That could be an interesting segue into talking a little bit about Aikido. Um, I'm very it's actually something I'm pretty upset about because I had always been interested in Aikido because it's where my parents met. And I always wanted to do it, but I never, just never, somehow it never happened. And I finally made it happen in the in the dojo that my parents met in, and under the son of the teacher they met under. And that was last year, and I had to stop doing it because my health has gotten so bad. Um, but there, I in doing that, I learned the story of, like, my parents actually met under uh what what the hell is his name? I guess it's not important. But I heard this story. Apparently, the story goes in the 70s, my dad went to Wayne College in Detroit, and there's one dude that got, like, obviously I have no idea how, if any of this shit is true, but there was one guy that got cornered in a bathroom by like 3 or 4 guys that were trying to mug him, and he took all 3 of them out. He took all of them out, because he had been studying Aikido, and so apparently the cops, this so like impressed the police in Detroit that they fucking sent for, like, sensei from Japan, from the main Aikido school in Japan. And so one of the top students in Japan came over here, and started teaching the police, and eventually started his own, like, you know started his own practice, and now is like, so the teacher that my parents, like, learned under is somebody that is like direct lineage to Aikido, like, lineage. And they were my mom married the top student. She was the top female student. She married the top male student. Um, they're both black belts. There's multiple levels. I'm not going to remember what level. It was like 4 or 5, maybe. I'm not going to get that straight. Um, and then he turned out to be an abusive piece of shit. And then, um, he my mom divorced him because he was an abusive piece of shit, and she proceeded to end up marrying the second top student, who was my dad.
Just working through the list. You
Um,
gotta have that Aikido swag.
and it's very interesting. I don't know a ton about it. It sounds very much like borderline culty, but, like, not in a super, like, negative way necessarily. Like, both my parents credit it. I mean, my mom had huge mental health issues her whole life, and especially into her 30s, and spent a lot of time unhoused, and just because couldn't she had a lot of mental health issues that she wasn't able to, you know she was never able to, like, take care of herself. And yeah, and it's currently in Ann Arbor, so you might be familiar. Don't You might, if you go into the, maybe you can fucking dox me through this, but if you can, good luck. um but anyway, she credits it with changing her life, and her being able to really function as a human being, and not quite as
Wow.
drastic for my dad, but certainly hugely impacted him. um and I think it's like, it definitely seems like a really important thing. And a lot of it wasn't, it's Aikido, and I imagine other martial arts are the same way, but it's very much, it's not just fight. Obviously Aikido specifically is not just, it's not fighting. It's very much a philosophy. It is a philosophy of it. It's interesting. The first time I went into Aikido, they really talked about it, where it's like it's about taking, like, redirecting uh, force is what it is physically, but it's very much about that philosophically as well. Like, kind of going with the flow, and it was really interesting, and it's I think it impacted, even though it's another thing that I think impacted me a lot, even though it was kind of secondhand, and I think that that's a place in which I don't know, people like almost similar to religion in that it is
Yeah.
a place of like ritual and philosophy and practice and a possible, and I think a lot of practices in the US are probably really shady and run, by white people in malls, but it's definitely a thing, a way to practice traditions and culture in the way that we're talking about.
Yeah, there's so many interesting things going on there because it really illustrates how just one small event and leading to that, like, Aikido master sensei, like, moving there, like, shaped the whole culture of the surrounding area that just created this Aikido, like, culture there
Yeah.
that influenced a lot of people's lives, and, yeah, as you were describing how important it was to your parents, I immediately was thinking about the spiritual void that a lot of people in the US feel, and a lot of people who just live in the wake of imperialism, capitalism, etc., feel, and the
And
different ways that we
yeah,
fill
I mean,
that.
that definitely is explicitly, I think, what they were both looking for. Like I said, both of my parents are
Really?
are very explicitly ex-Catholic, and I don't think they've ever explained it to me in so many, like said it to me in so many words, but I think it was very much a looking for, they were both really abused by Catholicism and its structures, and I think that it was a way to reject that and find something to replace it with, um, which is I think is a lot
Yeah,
in what we're talking about in ways like to create your own kind of culture and and do things in a more healthy way. And from everything I know about Aikido, and I'm sure there's a lot of fucked up shit I don't know about. Just with like any power structure, but and even the stuff that my dad described, there was a lot of fucked up shit. Um, Particularly, he actually lived in Japan for a year in the '80s and um, studied Aikido, and the descriptions of like, using violence on on like trainee students because you could is pretty upsetting. But it's still like
yeah,
it seems like there are a lot of elements of things that were really helpful to both my parents, and so
yeah. That's that's awesome, and, goes back to part of the conversation about religion that came up last time is, like, the difference between the Judeo-Christian or whatever, the Christian idea of, like, um religion as faith and like feeling and these private things versus having actual practices that you do and like a community that you show up to and something that you like participate in regularly. Um, I've been reading a lot of like books about from like gay leather daddies from like the 80s and 90s, and so many of them describe that as like a spiritual practice. A lot of them couch it in kind of what some of them are better read in Buddhism, for example, than others. Some of them are kind of pulling it out of their ass, and some of them are people who have studied it intimately, but a lot of them do talk about like master slave dynamics as kind of a yin yang. Neither one is superior. It's about holding things in balance, and that being part of what they enjoy about like practicing those things. So there's some kind of interesting similarities there.
yeah.
Um,
And I think that's interesting as just like finding things to practice, um,
mhm,
and that being significant and important and a big part of culture.
absolutely. There was one set of answers in the Discord from Bo Beebs I wanted to talk about because we've been talking about a lot of kind of Christian things, and they grew up in, or they're ethnically Japanese, passport is Japanese, but spent a lot of years in the US. So kind of slightly different, like kind of intersection of experiences. And they said, for what holidays do you celebrate? New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, gather as a family and eat soba for New Year's Eve, and eat osechi for New Year's Day. We visit a shrine in the new year. As kids, we receive pouches of pocket money. Christmas, consumerism version, not religious. Exchange gifts with friends and family. Uh, Birthdays, give and receive gifts and eat homemade cake. As a child, we celebrated holidays like Setsubun, Children's Day, and Girls' Day because those holidays have kid-friendly activities like throwing soybeans at adults dressed like demons. That
That
sounds
shit
fun.
sounds so fun.
Decorating the house with dolls and flying big carp kites. These holidays are taught at school too. When I'm living in the US, I participate in Halloween and Thanksgiving. As an adult, I have come to recognize solstices and equinoxes as significant opportunities to reflect on the seasons. So that's really cool.
I
Um,
there's a thing in Detroit that I don't know if it's still going on, but it's called the Witches Bazaar, and it's I mean it's mostly just like a craft show, but it happens on the equinoxes, and I thought it was really interesting because they'll the at least one of them I went to, they have like a big fire, and they had like a little place that was like they had little like things, I think it was like little twigs of sage or something, and you could like write a note and tie it to the sage and throw it in the fire, and it was like I don't know
mm,
what traditions they're cribbing off of on that or like any of that, but I thought it like I mean it was just something I did very briefly and once at basically at just at this craft fair, and I thought it's something I think about. It definitely when the equinox, when the solstices and the equinox happened, it's something I think about and it's meaningful.
yeah. Yeah, I've watched because I'm a weeb and I suck. I watch a lot of like videos of like just people doing various, like talking about different regions of Japan or like different, both people that live there and people that are like visiting there, and just like a lot of different practices at different Buddhist and Shinto shrines of just like similar things, like having some kind of reflection at the end of the year or, something that you're trying to kind of like purge, and just something about like a kind of physical practice of kind of just reflecting or kind of drawing attention to something and having it be like a physical act that lots of other people are doing too, or a blessing or whatever. It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels so much more approachable than a lot of like Christian stuff where it's like, I mean, I know you have like you go to church and you light a candle for someone or something like that. And I didn't grow up Catholic, so we didn't have that. Maybe, I'm sure a lot of people feel kind of grounded in a similar way by that, but it has so much more baggage
Hmm.
because of weird white Christian shit bringing to it.
Yeah. That's an interesting point that I feel like that's maybe a big part of why people like cuz a lot of this discussion, not our discussion necessarily, but the discussion that started the Tumblr discussion that you like posted in was like why white people are doing this weird like we talked about weird like almost blood quantum stuff and um uh, like appropriation and all that stuff, and I do think part of it is like, well, it doesn't have the baggage
Mhm.
because because you haven't been oppressed by it, because it's not true to you. It's not or not
Mm,
not about truth, but about like it doesn't involve power structures in your life. Um, and
yeah.
I know America has this like we've been talking some about Buddhism, and I know that was a thing that I explored very briefly when I was in middle school because I was raised a religiously. I definitely explored meditation and Buddhism to some degree, um, and it's interesting because I have a friend also in town that also did, and she actually got really involved in a local Buddhist temple and then found it was super fucking misogynistic and was a really negative thing, unfortunately. Like she still, you know, has some connections to some of that stuff, but and yeah.
Yeah, I think there's both like there's a lot of things going on, especially when like white people do this stuff. It's like there is on some level sometimes like latent racist, like, oh, this thing seems more pure and exotic and whatever.
Orientalism in
Um
that and for that particular case, yeah.
Sure, and I don't mean that to, like, knock on your friend. I think it's just like certainly
Oh
for
yeah.
me too, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's not necessarily why people always get into that thing, but there is this that shapes how we kind of view these things in general. But at the same time, I think there is also, like, there's nothing obviously nothing actually wrong with trying to, like, practice a new religious or spiritual practice, or to feel like, you know, none of the kind of grounding rituals offered to me by Christianity feel accessible to me or useful to me because it comes wrapped up with all of this ideological baggage that I'm not buying into. And so I can't just light the candle and enjoy it because I feel like I need to believe X, Y, and Z, you know. Um, but opening myself up to learning more about a different tradition doesn't feel like I have to co-sign everything about it, which yeah, it's weird, but then the deeper you go in, the more you realize like, oh wow, they really be living in a society too. And so a lot of the things that suck about
Yeah.
many organized religions, the hierarchy and stuff, they're still there.
Yeah. Um so it's been an hour and we've done one question. So I did want to read Quarian's response about holidays, and then maybe we move on if
Sure, yeah.
they had one. Maybe we actually read this one. We're Jewish. We try to celebrate Shabbat together every Friday, and ever since I moved out, it's a nice weekly visit for mom cooked food and lighting the candles and blessing the wine and challah together. We enjoy a lot of ritual tradition, community, and music that comes with the holidays.
Mm. And there's so many Jewish holidays that it really sucks to be in the United States or most other countries where it's just not given the space and the time off that it
Yeah.
deserves. It's also a thing worth mentioning.
Um. Yeah. So what is the next question? Let's try, we're
Yeah,
definitely not gonna get through all of these.
I know.
we did like one question and then we made up and we added another question. And so we've kind of done two
Yes.
questions.
Yes, sports. Yeah, we talked about sports.
um what lives on your shelves is the next thing. Uh
Yes.
the next question. Um so we can read some of the answers that we got. Um just to start us off. Corian answered,
Sure.
my living spaces are always very cluttered and full of stuff. I've never managed a single, quote, aesthetic. It's always just, all my stuff is here, everywhere. Hobby stuff, books, Lego, more books, various knickknacks. I don't have any art on the walls, mostly because I'm too nervous to hang a painting myself on rented walls. Huge, yeah, I think there's a lot there about
Mhm.
culture and
Yes.
living in spaces that we don't own and how culture being shaped by capitalism and all that stuff. um
Yeah, I'll have a lot to say on that as well, yeah.
and it feels silly to put something up for aesthetic reasons when the rest of my space is so unaesthetic.
Bo Beebs said, "What lives on your shelves? Tons of books in Japanese and English, calico critters, pinned insects." Um, and a monster I know is also in the chat is also a big taxidermy kind of person.
I have
And
some I love bones. I have some skulls.
and Stacy might have a few rattlesnakes where we will not speak of where they came from that are
uh
in formaldehyde.
oh, I think we've also been missing Vivian's responses
Oh
to,
yeah.
because we should have set these up better, because they're a little hard to parse because everybody has submitted them slightly different, which it's just a because of Discord.
Hmm.
So I'll see if I can hunt down the question that
Yeah.
we're on at least.
Yeah, I don't see from them. I think they kind of answered things more holistically, it looks like. So let me see.
Yes.
Photo says stuff, piles of books, piles of collected toys, mine and my kids, craft supplies, a variety of projects.
This one definitely is I think more than a lot of these is probably uh molded by uh us and our audience probably being almost entirely neurodiverse,
Mhm.
autistic or ADHD or both. Um, that definitely feels like a huge part of it. Not and not maybe not like I don't know in what way that makes us different from the larger like American culture, let alone you know cultures globally. But yeah.
Yeah, because when I first read this question, I really thought of, like, what in your family growing up was considered, like, this is an essential household item, right? Like, we keep this kind of olive oil, or we
Mm.
keep this kind of, like, supply because or, like, we use this as a remedy for everything, right? Like, that's what first came to mind for me. Um, but some of that is because I'm a renter and a mattress on the floor type bachelor kind of person who has not accumulated a lot of stuff and has
Right.
not so much as put up a shelf, let alone put a
your
thing on it,
famous your famous sticky velcro curtains.
which is falling off, as you can see. But that's all set to change recently soon. And I have this vision of like putting up,
Oh.
like having a workspace, having a nice streaming setup where I have a shelf behind me. So I'll put up a shelf. I'm gonna put like my leather pup hood on like a bust behind it
Oh.
because it's so pretty. It's all these bright colors like this, like hanging my shit. Surrounding myself with shit that makes me happy. Whoa.
Yeah, that
Basic human concept, but I like the idea now.
I very much I I feel like I for various reasons did not have not uh mostly untreated ADHD find it very difficult to keep my space in a like in a like structured way at all, let alone taking the time to like, you know, make it look nice. Um but I definitely it I live in a house where, you know, me and my spouse own this house and we can, you know, and we've been here a while and I've put some work. I also recently worked at a thrift store that was mostly furniture, which you know, I got a lot of stuff there and it has been really nice like creating a space that is nice. And it's still really difficult for me being ADHD, you know, having with ADHD and also like physical and mental health issues that I've had in the past couple of years. It's really hard for me to like, you know, keep things nice, let alone again. But it is such a delight to be able to create a space in which that I like, and I take a lot of pride. Someday I'll have to do a stream from my living room because I've
The
put
living room is so nice.
I
I love that living room.
I feel like I'll have to let me pull up an
The
ad.
poly couch, yes.
The poly
Everything
couch.
about it, that light post, that, like, wooden light post thing, the plants, the bar, everything's like this beautiful warm brown, like, it's very cozy, and then the poly couch. Um, it's a great setup.
I'm very proud of it. I have a gigantic uh 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 part modular couch from the 70s that I found on Facebook Marketplace that I love. It is a playpen couch. Uh, it is like
It's like
it
a
is.
conversation pit practically. It
Yes, it is.
owns
In my opinion, it is explicitly supposed to be if you want a conversation pit couch, but don't have, you know, can't dig a hole in your house to make it actually be a conversation pit. I'm obsessed with it. It is not the most comfortable couch in some ways, but it is so worth it when I have like if I have like a party and there's like fucking like how many you came to my birthday party how many
yeah,
fucking people were sitting could
so
like
many.
yeah
3 people could sleep on that at night. Like,
yes
it's been used as a
easily
guest bed, yeah, and even if they weren't fucking, they could do that.
yeah
Even
It's I
more people could be on it if they were fucking. But
it's ironic because we always call it the poly couch. Um but it's because it's like you can fit so many people on it, but you actually end up like um not having to be close to people because it's so fucking giant. This is a Twitter post that I found recently, and I think there was actually some discussion. This coincided with some discussion on maybe old school cool, but this is an ad that I've found that is for not the exact same couch. Mine is brown and has like buttons on it, but this is the exact same style of couch. Um, and uh, I
the
I
ottomans
love
are
this.
so big.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I do think it is comfortable. I'm always sinking into that thing.
It's very
Laying
comfortable
there.
mostly. It's only like in certain way. Like you can't sit between, like you can't sit here, right? Like
Mm.
you can't sit, you have to sit like on one of the seats. You can't like sit between them, and but it's overall it's so worth it.
Yeah. You could literally, I mean, just roll around on there. You could have like a have pup players crawling around on there, ABDLs, anybody who needs to be contained.
It's hilarious because like this ad is explicitly saying that it's called a playpen, but we don't promise it keeps you out of mischief. This every line of this is about fucking. Remember when
Oh,
mom used to pop you into a playpen to keep you out of mischief? With Simmons Playpen, we don't guarantee the same results. In fact, the playpen is a very adult idea in every sense. Sink into the luxury of cursed velvet, cushion within a cushion upholstery, and we can't be responsible for what happens. You're gonna fuck in this couch.
you're gonna roll around sloppy style.
You're gonna fuck. This is a playpen for fucking.
Yeah.
Mine's not velvet,
So good.
unfortunately.
That's
Uh,
probably for the best. That's got to be hard to keep clean.
yeah, I would. It would. It would not be in the condition it was. It's in if it was velvet. Oh,
Yes. Uh,
but anyway, that was sort of a tangent. That I think it's so important to be able to have control over your space, and so many of us are kept from it because we live in a capitalist hell, and not like even that like this couch is explicitly not something that you need to um modify your house to have. Um, but I if I had to move apartments every year, there's no way I could have this couch. I wouldn't have the space. First of all, it's gigantic, but also moving that shit regularly. If it's not possible.
oh, I anytime I acquire an item, I have heart palpitations thinking about moving it. Like
Right.
it's something, and some of this is my own neuroses, but like it's just like in my mind all the time. Like, oh, if I have to move this thing, and for a long time, I had a policy for myself, which was going way too far that I wouldn't let myself get anything that I couldn't move on my own. Like, so everything was tiny or just like modular, small,
Yeah.
my dresser was milk crates, which is still fine, steel milk crates, fuck it. But like, my mattress was 3 layers of foam because I could take the foam apart and carry it myself, roll it up. Just, and every time I moved, I would get rid of more shit. And that impacted deeper things like community ties because I couldn't really have people over because there was nowhere to sit. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
things like that. Couldn't
it's
cook for people,
it
whatever.
is having this house. I one of the things that we do here that I really love is it's not frequent because of for a variety of reasons, but I can have like parties here that are great just because of the space. Like, obviously I have this living room with this giant couch that is like perfect for having people over, but like we also have a backyard people can hang out in, and we have like a dining room where people can like it's like set up so that you can have different areas, and that shit is so important. Like I I very much am somebody who has trouble keeping up with people and having regular interactions with people, but one of the things that we have been able to do is like once or twice a year I have a big party with like everybody I know, and that is so fucking healing and just really really important for my mental health and life and connection, because I do have trouble tighter connections with people. So it's like, well, at least if I can't remember to fucking message somebody, at least once a year I'll see them at a big party that I have because I have a house in which I can do that. Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
And that helps maintain culture, right? Like, that is an anchor. Like, I've had friend groups before where there were regular ongoing kinds of like, oh, this Halloween party is always happening at this house, every year, and it gives you an anchor of, "I'm gonna see these people, I can rely on this thing, I feel rooted, I feel
yeah,
belonging, and I get to see all of these people that not everyone at that party would be someone I would, like, be chatting or texting with all the time. We might not have that kind of connection, but we could maybe, just hang out and dance and, bum a cigarette and, like, I like, that kind of, not as deep, but still consistent communal tie is, like, pretty gone now for a lot of people,
yeah.
and
And it's really hard to
yeah.
do that when everybody lives in apartments. It's a lot harder to have that kind of party in an apartment, and especially when like you're saying, if you're not fucking set up for it because you know yeah you don't have the
Yeah,
equipment, literal equipment for it. If you don't have enough fucking chairs to have like a bunch of people at your house, it's not gonna be something people are gonna want to do.
right. In the chat, the smallest deer said, I feel like a lot of young people in the US have to live a semi nomadic lifestyle, except you have to do it in complete isolation instead of alongside your community. So that
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's not even just parties, it's also like being able to offer someone a space if they need to get
yeah.
away from where or they just don't have somewhere to land. Um,
Yeah, that's a huge thing
Safety
that
net.
I'm feel without without a better word blessed to have this house because we can do that. We have a guest bedroom and there have been many a handful of people who have been here when especially getting out of abusive relationships. There's been 3 or 4 people who have stayed here for some amount of time to help get them on their feet after an abusive getting out of an abusive relationship, or even just having like there's other people that have never stayed here, but they know if they need a place to stay they can come here, and that is a huge thing. And that not having those kinds of connections is like, even, and I mean, let alone talking about people who are unhoused in general, but like even among people who have who are housed, like it being more of a tenuous situation, it being is really makes it difficult.
Yeah, it's so wonderful that y'all do that, and offer that to people. It's been just witnessing it and like thinking about it in terms of like, okay, just thinking about the future and growing older and what building a community looks like. It's been like not inspiring to me in the like, oh, person with a wheelchair has a job kind of fucking fucked up way, but in the like, this is something for a direction in which for me to grow as a person that it's just, admirable and something that I want to be able to do more of myself, and like,
I really
yeah,
appreciate that. It is one of
yeah.
the things that I really I feel really dedicated to, and I only want to do it more. And yeah, God, it this is very much a tangent, but did you uh it's interesting we're having this conversation because I feel like there has been some discussion about Christianity specifically. Um there was literally just a case in Ohio about a guy that opened up his church for 24
Yes.
hours
And he
and
got
got
ticketed.
yeah.
So fucked up.
Yeah, let me see if I can. I think it was called Dad's Church. Is that what it was? I remember
Could have been.
I think it was called Dad's Church, and I'm like, is God the dad? Or is he the dad?
Is he dead? That's
Da-
yeah.
Dad's Place. Uh yep, in Bryan, Ohio. Or Byron, yeah, Bryan, Ohio. Pastor Bryan, Ohio pleaded not guilty to zoning violations. He was charged with for leaving his church's doors open to the homeless 24/7 during and this Pastor Chris Avell, Dad's Place. Um what is the who is the dad? Is it God?
It's such a weird, but that's like one of those like evangelical, when they like make those coffee shops that are like
Mm.
secretly Christian, that are like everybody's family coffee shop, and then you go there and they're like really trying to
Family in the
recruit you.
Christian
Yeah,
covenant.
yeah,
um,
but they're trying to like recruit you
but I
into
mean,
some kind of weird
it
cult.
really shows the way in which, like, like America and capitalism and imperialism, like it's like even in the ways it is like Christian, it is like hostile even to those fucking that ideology. Like when somebody does
Mhm.
something Christ like, it is illegal. Like
Yes. Yeah, property, as this private sanctified thing, like it's so fucked up that like it's not even about individuals' rights, right? Because it's
right.
like if if the libertarian fantasy were true, right? You could open up your doors to whoever you wanted, right? But like because doing so would disrupt the capitalist power structure, you're not even allowed to do that. You're not even
Yeah.
allowed to, with your own property, do what you want if it's going to help people.
Yeah.
Like, and make them less like reliant upon capital. It's that will make you an enemy of the state.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. Yeah.
Um yeah. And we talked last week about bombs not or food not bombs,
Food
which
not
is a
bombs. Yeah.
similar thing where it's like, I mean, what is more Christ like than you know, providing food to people, and that is illegal all over
Yeah.
the US.
Yeah. And it does make me sad sometimes thinking about whatever Christianity could have been
Mhm.
instead of what it's been made into by nation states and churches and corporations. Like that it was this like socialist, anti-hierarchical
Yeah.
community,
Yeah,
driven
famous
thing.
I mean famously Jesus, knocked over the what are the the bankers or whatever, I
Yeah, the
forget
money
exactly.
lenders. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Hit them with whips and shit.
yeah.
Like,
And
that's cool.
yeah, used to do work for a fundraising consulting company, and one of our clients was a church called shelter called Boys Town.
Oh my
The
god.
boys are back in town.
That's really funny. Come on down to Boys Town.
Parties is one. Roy Christmas says parties is one thing I'm very glad to have learned from my family. We have around 20 family birthdays that we celebrate every year, so I grew up with regular gatherings with them being without them being anything special. That really helped me trying to continue this with my friend group now that I'm in a different city than my family. Without being already used to it, I would never have been able to gather the mental energy for organizing and hosting, even if it's only 2 to 3 times a year. Yeah. Yeah,
Mm,
it can be a big challenge. I know it's a lot for us every time we do it. Even if it's worth it, it's a lot.
yeah. Um, so when I was first thinking about this question, I was thinking about like, okay, what were kept on the shelves when you were growing up or like in your family. And of course, my first thought was, Stacey, if you're still here, and we need some pictures. The Funko Pops. This woman oh my god. I took pictures of it last year, but I didn't do it this Christmas. Stacy shelves the number of Funko Pops. The number of goddamn Funko Pops this person has. She has so, it's very cool. Her house is like a Halloween house 24/7,
I have heard this, and
365.
I want to see this because it sounds amazing to me.
Yeah, she's put a lot of work into redecorating this place that like she and our mom lived in since she was a teenager, but just repainting everything, giving everything kind of like black and gray kind of accents, and very Tim Burton stripes and things like that. And she has like rows and rows and rows of Funko Pops in the glass cases, and some of them are like backlit if they're like glow in the dark ones, like or the blacklight ones, but then also lots of like Disney villain kind of stuff, taxidermied animals and bones, um, just little creepy things everywhere. And You know, like her bathroom is Nightmare Before Christmas themed, the whole bathroom.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah. And growing up, our mom was very into Snoopy, so we had lots of Snoopy shit everywhere.
Snoopy's good. That makes that Snoopy's a good one.
Yeah. So it
Um,
was always very like a consumer brand thing that you like identify with.
yeah,
Was a big part of what was on everything.
I definitely do think that it's this weird thing where it's like, I mean, and I think it's just something we've kind of touched on a lot. Is it's like that is unfortunate. I mean, and it's definitely not, it's not a bad thing, but it feels like our so much of the way that we that in so far as like capitalism and whiteness and all this stuff is a destructive force, it's like antidote is like consumption. Like
Hmm.
it is like destroying cultural like tradition and offering in replacement consumerism,
And
which
yeah, like corporate properties are like our new
yeah,
icons. Yeah.
I was thinking about that when we were talking about sports, because I actually purposefully underwent like uh I don't, you know, I'm sports are not something like that's a pretty common, more I'd say more for men, but not solely like this like thing where it's like if you meet a stranger you can usually talk about local sports.
Hmm.
But I don't have that, but I actually purposefully watched all of the Marvel movies at that point when Megan had top surgery. We watched all of the Marvel movies up to that point. Not all the shows because Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh my
But
lord. Yeah.
I do, yeah. We had a lot of time, not that much time. But it was like, it was purposefully because it was like, well, that was something. And I was curious. I'm not a complete Marvel hater the way some people are. Um, it's like, you know, morally bad because it's all like American military propaganda, but it's like, you know, everything is, so whatever.
Hmm.
Um, but I, you know, so it wasn't. It, I enjoyed them as like kind of like you know, slop, but
Yeah.
but it was also a purposeful thing of like, well, then I could actually, it's a thing that like most people have seen most of those. Like, and so it's this interesting thing where it was like there was the fucking Civil War movie, and it was like there it was purposefully this thing where it was like, well, there's these two sides and who do you agree with, and it's like that was now a conversation that I can have with many people, um
Right.
and like an easy thing to kind of like discuss. And
Yeah. It's like a way because there is no it's weird because it's like we have a monoculture in a lot of ways. Like almost every American city looks the exact same. You know, these
yeah,
big wide streets with a McDonald's and a Burger King and whatever, same shops, same everything. And at the same time, we've reached a media landscape where, and an internet landscape where people can burrow into whatever hyper specific niche they want. That we almost have nothing in common with random other people anymore. And it's
yeah,
not just because we're de freaks, but also we are de freaks. So we're even less likely to have that stuff.
yeah.
Um, there's this David Byrne song off of his like collab with Saint Vincent where he has a song that's like I used to think that I should watch TV, and it's just about him talking about how he used to watch TV so he could understand other people. And he's autistic,
That's
um,
very autism.
very autism. And yeah, I've definitely had similar things like that where it's like, and actually, I do have some friends that I go to see Marvel movies with where it is kind of like the sports thing. It's like, oh, it's just a regularly occurring thing that's an excuse to spend time together.
Hmm.
And then it's something to talk to normal people about. And that's, yeah, almost the only reason why I do it.
Generally enjoy them. Um, some more than others. Um, so it's definitely like I don't do it as like a obligation. I didn't do it as like an obligation. It was, and it's but it's like they're like things that I enjoy while I'm doing them and then don't think about them. Like,
Mhm.
um, personally, I think the best movies are movies that you think about, or like media in general. It's like for me, it's like if I don't think about the media after I'm done with it, it means that I didn't think it was very good. Um,
Yeah.
there are some exceptions where things are so bad that I'm thinking, but I enjoy bad movies too. And Marvel movies were very explicitly something where generally I like enjoyed them as I watched them and then didn't think about them again.
Right.
But
Have you seen Poor Things yet, by the way?
no, I've heard good things about it.
Oh my god. Oh
Is
my
it
god.
good?
Shit goes crazy. Yeah, it's shit's fucked up. Um, have you seen Beau is Afraid also by
No,
Ari
I need
Aster?
to. I've seen his other stuff and really enjoyed them, but I haven't seen
Beau is
his.
Afraid is awful, and I think everyone should watch it. Like I hated every second of it, but and I think everybody should watch it. Like who's into movies, who's into like thinking about things. Like oh my god, it made me feel awful. Get me a tummy ache, and that's wrong, you know. And then Poor
Yeah.
Things is like about similar things, but it has kind of a happier ending. So it's like the non-evil version. Just
Uh,
thinking of films lately that like make you think and make you feel a thing.
yeah.
Um,
It'd be fun to
yeah,
do. It'd be fun to talk movies sometime on this show. I feel like I don't know what
yeah,
like if it should be part of a larger discussion if we wanted to do, or maybe it'd just be fun to be like, let's watch a movie and then talk about it on the show. That could be fun. I like movies and I don't watch them enough.
yeah, yeah. Or like I don't know if you have a letterbox, but like that's really fun. Like looking at other people's reviews on Letterboxd and like I have like I only give something on Letterboxd either 1 stars or 5 stars, nothing in between.
Okay, I thought you had to. I am. I could never give something a star rating. I think.
Hmm.
I think it's this is so off track of the conversation, but I just like don't think about like like there's just too many. I feel like this sounds so pretentious, but I feel like I enjoy things in so many axes. It's impossible to be like,
Mm,
well, a star rating. I'm gonna like and I think people that are good at this are actually it's a huge skill because they're also enjoying things in a bunch of different axes and they're able to be like distill all of those axes into one axis and do like a into one axis of like number of stars, and I can't imagine doing that. Like I
yeah.
could never like distill my feelings on something into a star rating in general. Like just for as a very small example, I love watching bad movies. I
Hmm.
watch a lot of bad movies, mostly because they're easier to watch than a good movie. um
Hmm.
and I'm like, well, like Cats, I enjoyed Cats more than almost any
Yes,
movie I've seen. It's probably
it's
one of my
fun.
favorite movies, but do I give that a 5 star? Like,
See, that's why I went with because I'm with you. I also think like it's kind of cheapens the deeper experience of like engaging with the work of art to like evaluate it based on just whether you like it. I think
yeah,
our mutual friend Turnip said that she learned in some class, some probably some writing class that like the most useless thing you can say about a piece of art is whether you liked it or not. Like
yeah,
that doesn't
that's
say
interesting.
much. And I decided with my letterbox ratings to just go pure gut. Like, did it make me feel yucky or did I enjoy it? And that doesn't mean anything about its merit. So Beau is Afraid got 1 star, Poor Things got 5 stars, like lots of
Interesting.
stupid things get 5 stars. And then I'll leave a review that's way more nuanced or if I feel like it.
Right,
But it's totally just pure gut instinct, animal brain, like
right.
this was good. I would watch it again. This was yucky and terrible and it fucked me up, like could be and that's often a compliment that it made me
Yeah.
feel so shitty. Um
I think about
yeah.
oh fuck, what's the movie about drugs with
Requiem
shitty
for a Dream.
yeah, yes.
Yes, that's a
I love
perfect example.
where I was just
Yeah.
like I watched that and I think it's probably one of the better movies I've watched. But I don't want like I saw that movie probably like 10 years ago now, so I might be able to watch it again, but like I don't really want to because it sucked to watch. It was really hard.
uh
Oh,
yes. That's a perfect example. It's like if it made me feel something strongly, that's a successful, or think about something.
Yeah,
That's like a
totally.
successful artistic project. And if it made me feel kind of nothing, that I would have given it 3 stars, I'm not gonna, it just doesn't even rank, you know?
My perfect example of that is Eternals. Did you watch
Mm,
Eternals?
I liked that one. Here's how stupid I am. Like, the theater we were in had really nice chairs.
Okay, I actually, even that aside, I could see probably enjoying it more in theaters because it was there probably were like just in general, as I mean, I think all Marvel movies are probably better in a theater because they're just roller coaster rides. But fuck,
Hmm.
was that movie boring. Oh my god, I just I literally, I am somebody who does not mind, despite my ADHDness. If it takes me a lot of mental effort to watch a movie, but once I start, I don't turn it, like, I never, like, it can be the fucking, like, I've never understood the criticism of like it dragged or like it was too long. Like, it's just not my, like, I don't care. That's one of the few movies where it's like, is this over? Like, I don't want to be watching this anymore.
Went off this ride. I'm
It's
literally
just
so
so
dumb.
bored.
I do hate that movies are 3 hours long by default now. I get very antsy. I need to move and groove. Um, and I'm so dumb that, and I think you've probably heard me say this before. I saw Dune and I saw the Eternals in the same week, and Dune I didn't like because it was making me thirsty. And the Eternals I liked because the chair was comfortable. Um, so one would be a 1 star, one would be a 5 star. Again, pure animal brain.
This is such a tangent, but we need to do, yeah, we totally need to, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, figure out,
Yeah, we should do a movie one.
I don't know what, like, I don't know what it should, if
Maybe
you
some
guys,
kind of tier list or something, or like something like
that would
that.
be fun. It'd be fun to watch, for each of us to watch like a movie and talk about it together, like classic movie podcast deal. So I don't know if people have ideas. It could be a segment too, because we don't probably need 3 hours to talk. We probably could talk about any movie for 3 hours because that's how we roll. But it could be a segment or
Yeah.
something. I don't know. If people have
Yeah, that'd be fun.
suggestions for a movie, or we could watch them in the Discord too. That could be fun. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that would be fun. But yeah, okay. So going back to the things on your shelves, what about your family? Like growing up, what was important to
Lots
like
of
keep on your shelves, keep stocked with? It's like display, whatever. Yeah.
lots of books. Both my parents were are pretty big readers. And I remember my family, like, my family's like, you know, upper middle class or whatever. Like, we always were more well off. So but I very much was like, I had an allowance and I could buy things with my allowance. Like, my parents usually didn't buy me things. The one exception was books, where it was like, literally, if I wanted a book, they would just buy it for me. So we definitely had huge shelves of lots of books. Um, and yeah, I don't know. We had a little bit of art, I feel like, but it was not a ton. Yeah, I'm having trouble remembering everything. My mom definitely has some, like, she's kind of, in addition to the Aikido stuff, she's kind of got some, she's a little spiritual. So I feel like there's some stuff on the walls that are kind of spiritually kind of stuff. I remember we had a big, I don't even, like, spirally guy you would have liked, that was mirrored.
Mm,
That was like some
cool.
kind of, I think, supposed to be like Buddhist thing. Um, yeah, I don't know. My memory is so bad. I'm having trouble giving a very good answer.
We had, this is helping remind me that especially when I was a kid, we had a lot of handmade quilts and
Mm.
crafts from my great Mimi, because we call grandmothers Mimi in my family. My great Mimi, who was like a big crafter, which Stacy has kind of gotten that from. Um, so these hand sewn quilts, and there was one embroidery that she did that if I was going to be born on Easter, which was really close to the due date when my mom was pregnant with me, my name was going to be Bunny. Um,
Oh my god. Oh my I
yeah,
don't understand. You would have been a very different kind of I'm imagining a very different kind of trans man
I
named
know.
like you just wouldn't have changed your name and you would have just been Bunny and your
I
username
could
on
have been a
Twitter would
true femboy, like
yeah,
a
you would have
true femboy.
you just would have been
Like,
small bean on Twitter and
I
just
know I would have been so toxic. I'd be doing such numbers on OnlyFans. It'd be crazy. I would have been a furry way sooner, like explicitly. So, so my great grandma made this embroidery of like a little child with like bunny ears, and it says like Bunny Bohannon on it because that was my last name at the time. And that was hanging
Oh,
up for a long time.
that's so
Um,
cute. I'm
yeah,
dying.
yeah. I wonder where that went now that I think about it. So that's I'm glad to be reminded of that because talking about like passing down like culture and like family artifacts, like there was some real stuff on the walls there that had that
Yeah,
of history.
my mom is like has sewn since she was a little girl and she's, born uh like 1950s. She's, so she's older for in boomer even and so she sewed her whole life and apparently I think she even worked like made suits at one point as a business. So yeah, lots of sewing knowledge there. And we've like done projects together and stuff. I should bring on some of the stuff that she's made for me because that's not explicitly on the walls or on shelves, but definitely talking about tangible items that was like passed down. And another thing that it feels like, um, you know, capitalism tries to subsume because, you know, it like we're so disincentivized to craft and all of the clothes that we have are so made so poorly they're not worth repairing and that's a huge avenue into sewing and
Mhm.
yeah, so I very much think repair, I mean, I could talk a lot about how I think repair uh in general is a huge really important aspect of anti-capitalism. um and sewing is such a big, yeah, mending and
Mm.
is so important. um but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I used to know someone who did some plays through the Neo-Futurist Theater who she also has a show with Quilty, like a quilting crafting channel, and she has all these rants about how, like, a good quality quilt will take so long to make,
Mm.
and even sourcing the scraps, you're not supposed to just buy a kit,
Yeah.
in her as a purist, buy pre-made scraps, you're supposed to use existing scraps of fabric, and that's part of the story of the quilt, and that's what makes it economical. And then if you just go buy a quilt at like, Marshalls or something, it's not even really a quilt. It doesn't have the like stuffing. It's just a pattern of a couple of scraps of fabric just sewn together with like maybe no filling at all. And like how just like people's understanding of like what a quilt even is has been so devalued because people will buy that shit for like $35 and it's not even warm, it won't hold up, all of that stuff. And that's true of like so many so many things that people used to
Yeah.
craft and make by hand.
Yeah, I have a few. We have a quilt my mom made me, and we have a quilt maybe from Megan's grandma, one of their grandmas. Yeah, really really important stuff.
Yeah. I have this one of the thing like in terms of like bedding that I've held on to is this fleece blanket that my sister's high school boyfriend made me because he worked at Joanne Fabrics. Of like it's like a Link Legend of Zelda Wind Waker blanket that he made me.
Oh man,
Um,
that's
yeah,
great.
yeah. Um, and so it's just this weird tie to somebody that I haven't talked to in 10 years or something like that. But like,
Yeah. What is
yeah.
that one post about like I make ramen the way that my friend taught me in college? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh,
It's like one
is
of
it a
those.
Tumblr post?
Yeah, it's like one of those canonical Tumblr posts you see all the time. I'll see if I can bring it up.
Yeah, I think it ends with something like, what's the phrase? How do they put it? But like, other people are a part of you in ways that like they'll never even know,
Mm.
or who you are is shaped by people you might never see again, or something like that.
Have you ever noticed? Have you ever noticed you pick up little habits and phrases from the people you love? It's no wonder that our hearts are so easily broken when people leave. We become a reflection of the people that we care about, and those personality traits stick with us even if those people don't. I make my in a response. I make my ramen the way a friend taught me in the 11th grade. Every fall, I listen to a playlist made for me by a boy I drove across a border to hook up with. I eat sushi because a girl who won't talk to me anymore made me try it, and Indian food because my best friend's parents ordered for me before I knew what I liked. There are movies I love because someone I loved them first, and I'm a mosaic of everyone I've ever loved, even for a heartbeat.
Mm.
Yeah.
Ugh, ugh, ugh. And that's true with like the whole intellectual property conversation too, right? Like no
Yeah.
idea, no practice is untouched by the influence of other people. And that's part of why the conversation about cultural appropriation can get way too oversimplified. Like,
Yeah.
cultural exchange is inevitable. You put two people from different families in the same room, and you're going to see an act of cultural exchange. Um, and when it's not this like destructive imperialist thing, it's beautiful. You know.
Hmm.
Um, Anarcho Habitus in the chat said, "This is one question that really hit me as far as making me realize an aspect of my culture that I didn't think a ton about before. Many people in my family are crafters in various ways. My great grandmother and my mom and I all quilt, various crochet and cross stitch projects. My dad had lots of little clay figures he made, various paintings and ceramics and all kinds of stuff. Handmade activities have been such a thread of my life."
Yeah. Yeah. That's something I really want to to pick up. I have this weird thing where I feel like I didn't learn anything sewing related from my mom because I always had these ideas that were too big for me to, like, I never was like, all right, I'm gonna make something basic. I was always like, I'm gonna make something crazy, and so I didn't actually have the skills to do it, and my mom would very helpfully help me, but that mostly meant she did a lot of the actual practical work because it was so outside of my able to do it. um
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's something I've really want to, an interest that is one of my many interests, that a thing I really want to get into and haven't because brain.
Yeah, I I come from a big crafting family. My great grandmother, my grandmother, my mom, Stacy. Stacy is insanely good at like this is like her like autistic savant thing. Like she will just watch a YouTube video of how to like sew like a leather wallet, and then she can just do it. It's crazy. But I've always been in search of some kind of tactile craft as a satisfying thing to do, and I'm just really not good at that kind of stuff. I would love to learn like leather working, for example. Like I feel like there's so many things out there that I like certain things people make, but there's a version of a harness I want to have in my mind that would be slightly different. And like being able to learn to make some simple things and put them together, I think would be really cool. But
I have, see, this is why I have to move to Chicago so we can just we can get make leather shit together because I want to do that so bad
yeah,
too.
yeah, that would be fun. I know there's classes through like Burger Park in the Park District and stuff. And that one feels like it would be accessible to me. Like some leather working is a little bit more simple. Like, you cut the strips and you grommet them. Like it seems possible to learn.
Yeah. Um we which that all reminds me, we do have, if you're not in the Discord, or even if you are, I will remind you, we have a thing. What is it? What is the actual,
Things you've made.
yeah, channel
Yep.
that please post in there. I love when people post in there. I don't always respond very much, but I see it and I love it. Want want more. Piscord quilting 101 block exchange. I love this.
Oh, that would be fun.
Oh, yeah, that'd be
Uh
so cool.
yeah, that's really and then we would all be connected through
Oh,
scraps.
I love
I
this.
love a good t-shirt quilt. Those are always so
Ooh,
fucking cute.
yeah.
I
And
love
I know,
those.
I
I
know,
think those are harder to make than some of it.
I know I have a lot of shit I don't fit in anymore because I've gained weight. So,
Yeah, a t-shirt quilt would be great. Nick Knack said, I once bought a big bag of leather scraps at a Ren fair, which made it way cheaper to practice. That's
oh
really cool.
yes, yeah. Um, yeah. Uh, Nick and I are in the same area, and our Ren Fair is actually really. I've heard is really good. I've only been there once, which is a shame. Um, but yeah, I've
Talk
heard
about a
really.
culture and a cult. Like,
Yeah.
no for
Um,
shit.
but yeah, scraps. I've heard over and over again that scrap leather is like so the way to do it.
Yeah. It's for our said leatherwork skills would have been so much more common 100 to 200 years ago. Now it's super niche. My great grandparents were cobblers, so I have their old leather tools. They're very special
Oh,
to me.
that's so
Oh, that's
cool.
so dank. Here in by Andersonville, there used to be this amazing shoe repair shop, tiny little hole in the wall, old Russian man. He would scream at you. He was so mean, but he would treat you right. Like I went there to get various boots repaired over the years, and every time he was like, "It's not worth it. This is a cheap piece of shit boot. This is glued on. It's not sewn. There's nothing I can do here. Like, I could repair this, but then it's stuffed with cork. It's just gonna fall apart. I only work leather." Like, and he'd yell piles of shoes, like, from the floor to the ceiling, just left behind shoes people never claimed. Like, ah, it closed down within the last couple years, probably because he retired, which sucks because it was like he seemed like he was a goblin who had been there for a million years. It was so magical.
Oh god, that shit is so good. And it's like nothing is made well enough to fucking repair anymore, which is so ugh. And it just reminds me of the have we ever talked about the Vimes theory of boots on the show, cuz it just feels like probably most of our audience has heard this before. Um but it's just one of those things that I feel like should be said. Um
Absolutely.
I also just this is from Discworld, uh, the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett, which I just read the first book of. I've always been interested and have never
Oh,
read any,
cool.
and it was I enjoyed it. Um, um, but yeah, this is a thing. I haven't read the book this comes from, but this is a thing I've heard from, you know, the internet. Uh, from the Wikipedia, the reason that rich were so rich, Vimes reasoned, was because they managed to spend less money. Take boots, for example. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that'd still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while a poor man who could only afford cheap boots would have spent $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet.
It's
It's,
so fucking true.
and it feels like that's the entirety of our culture. Like, it feels like so
Yeah.
much of the way that especially clothes, but so much of what we purchase is like that now. Ugh.
Yeah. It's hard to find well-made things even if you want to and have the in theory the means to, which most people don't.
Yeah.
The buy it for life subreddit is so cool because it's people sharing crockery that they've had for 50 years. Um, Companies that do make like really sturdy rain jackets and boots that'll actually repair them for you or have to make replaceable parts. Um, all kinds of different tools and equipment. Um, and this also kind of makes me think of something that came up in my most recent Substack piece. My disability is manufactured about how tool libraries are a thing and could be more of a
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
Like, why does every person have to buy a fabric steamer, for example, if you're going to use that to clean your couch like once every couple of years or once a year? And then it's going to just take up space that if you're a renter, you probably don't have and you probably can't afford anyway. Like, there's so many kinds of tools that we have to have bigger spaces, we have to pay more money owning them and keeping them for ourselves, or we just do without because there's no way to just have a community center where we all share those things and how much that just erodes again cultural ties and economically impacts people.
Yeah, I was involved in a hackerspace, which was basic, very similar to a makerspace in mostly but name, and it was so cool to have they have like a giant laser cutter, and if you are in if you are interested in makerspaces and stuff, unfortunately the problem with makerspaces generally is that they're very expensive. They usually have a monthly fee. Yes, I was going to say that the check out your local library, because a lot of, especially the bigger libraries in big cities, but even sometimes in smaller libraries, will have some amount of tool library these days.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, Husifer says local library has tools and some cooking stuff. Yeah, cooking stuff is another huge thing
Nice.
where it's like, I mean, I think we've maybe talked about this on the show before, where it's so crazy to me that kitchens like that is such a huge part of the atomization of our culture, where it's like we're all expected to cook for ourselves. Seems crazy to me. Um,
Hmm.
it doesn't feel possible. If you have a 40-hour
Not.
work week and you're supposed to also like feed, like do grocery shopping and all that stuff yourself, and it's like this is a thing that traditionally in many societies before our own, this was a communal thing. This was a specialized
Hmm.
thing that people shared. Yeah.
Yeah. Here in Chicago, there is a tool library. It's on the west side. It has a lot of stuff, ladders, hammers, what all kinds of stuff like that. It's too far away for me to have taken advantage of it, but that's also it's in a good neighborhood for that to reach a lot of people who would need it. Um, Also, buy nothing groups I've heard from people are really great. They're usually on Facebook, and I think they have a website as well. Not only can you just pick up a lot of like furniture and technology for free from people getting rid of it, you can also borrow sometimes some tools from people there. So
Yeah. I don't know what other places are like. This is not borrowing like we were saying, but I the place I used to work for is Habitat for Humanity Restore, and it was incredible the amount of used tools that they had for extremely cheap, and I know that those are national, and I bet that like those are I think we had a really good selection, but um yeah, using stuff secondhand is another way to be able to do that.
yeah, growing up, one of my best friends, their dad ran this business called North Coast Hotel Liquidation. So this is in the Cleveland area, and he would the way he got into that business was that one time there was a train wreck and a bunch of toilet paper got damaged by smoke from the fire, and he salvaged all the toilet paper and went to a
Smoky
hotel
toilet paper.
and he went to a local motel and was like, "Hey, do you want some cheap smoke damaged toilet paper?" And he turned a little profit on that. And then sometime later,
This is hilarious.
old Jeff Ashwell, then, the motel called him sometime later and said, "Hey, we're remodeling. We need somebody to get rid of all these old chairs and beds and things like that. Can you take them out?" And he was like, "Yes." And he removed them, and then he went to a shittier motel and was like, "Hey, do you want some cheap chairs and tables and beds and things?" And they were like, "Sure." And now, 30 years later, he has like this great like warehouse where you can buy like, desk sets, lamps, art, mirrors, dressers for like, 39 bucks or whatever. Um, and you know, it's it's good.
Again, we're tangenting a lot on this discussion, but I talked about my thrift store dream on the show. I feel like I told you about it at least once, but I don't know if I've actually talked about it on stream.
Yeah, I don't think you have.
I have this dream. My ultimate dream is and this came from working at Habitat for Humanity, because the thing that fucking made me so mad about Habitat was mostly the managers were just bad. Um but also we threw so much shit away, which like some of it was like understandable because like you know using this stuff would have taken so many man hours to get working, but like there was so much stuff that was like could have been repaired. And it was really interesting because we actually had this volunteer that was like he was actually a retired no not semi-retired art historian. Like he was a professor of art history, and he just got really he like volunteered and got really into rehabbing the um like appliances like washers and dryers and stoves and fridges and stuff. And because we would get those and resell them, but he like got really into like learning how to like not just clean them and make sure they worked, but also like rehab them and fix them. And it was really really interesting. And so I have this dream of a first of all a worker owned, obviously, thrift store that would be like that would be like part recycling center and part thrift store, where just we would accept everything. And the idea would be to fix things as much as possible, but it would be a thrift store and also a maker space. So you would
Mm.
have people would donate all of their like all their old stuff, you know, whatever they didn't want. Like Habitat for Humanity was all furniture, right? And so like having this space that had all of these huge amount of tools to like repair all of this stuff. And then you could also like it would also be at like this maker space. My idea it was that you could like volunteer there and basically like work hours at the like repairing stuff. And then you could get like because so the biggest problem with maker spaces and the reason that they're so hard to like most unavailable to most people is because they're so expensive, because they're typically large. They're the you know, a lot of the stuff that maker spaces have are really expensive. And I mean, they're the ones that I'm familiar most of the ones I'm familiar with in my area are hundreds of dollars a month. They're just
Mm.
not affordable. And so this idea would be, I mean, it would be like worker owned and nonprofit ideally. So there's, you know, some amount of like, you know, we wouldn't be attempting to make a profit off this stuff. And hopefully we would be getting like, you know, and it all runs on donations. Um and and we have the thrift store to like fund it. And then also you like have a giant fucking makerspace with a bunch of tools and to repair the stuff that people donate in order to resell it. And then also just to use the stuff that people donate to make new stuff for your own personal use. So like it, because I also imagine like it could be, you know, be a closed thrift store too. And so you like would take the donations and you could be able to fix stuff, but also like you could just like I imagine like you could put time in like volunteer time into repairing donations and, you know, working the store. And like and then you could get money that you could like just take stuff for free based on all
Mhm.
the hours that you've worked. And you so you could just take a bunch of the clothes and like fucking rip them apart and make stuff for yourself, and or make stuff
Oh,
for other
that'd be so
people.
sick.
Like I'm imagining like imagine being a fucking trans person that just started transitioning and you're like, I don't have any clothes, and maybe my body type is like whether it's because just because, you know, I'm a trans woman that's fucking 6'3", so no clothes don't fucking fit me, or it's because, you know, you're a fat person that fucking clothes don't fit you because of the way nobody fucking makes clothes for fucking fat people. And so you could like actually get tailored shit that would be made out of the stuff that is like donated, and we'd have like a
Mhm.
giant fucking like so like, you know, sewing space where it's like cuz people don't have room to have that those kinds of like tools and stuff in their own place. So anyway,
It
that's my dream for
and people would learn so many skills, like, something
yeah.
people were talking about in the chat is, like, now people don't even know how to tell if something's well made or, like, what is
Yeah.
a good appliance or a well-made pair of boots or whatever, and they don't have the skills to repair these things, and so then they get fucking hosed if they ever do go to a repair person. So, like, people learning those repair skills from being there would do so much to help like, smooth out those inequalities because it tends, of course, to be, like, women, for example, who get really fucked over by mechanics or repair guys or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
Um
groups of people that don't that are excluded normally from having those skills, you know?
Yeah, I did for a long time. I was a part of a local group that's pullover prevention, that where we did an event where we would replace people's blinkers for free, because it started at in one of the like bunch of publicized deaths by police, murders by police of black people. Was one of them was somebody got pulled over for not having a their turn signal was out, or their headlight was out or something, and they got pulled over and got fucking murdered, even though they didn't have a weapon, just because I think in that case the fucking person, like the cop, like supposedly grabbed their gun instead of their fucking taser, like
Oh my god.
just evil shit. But the
Yeah.
idea is like, if your headlights are fucking fixed, then you're not gonna, that's one less reason to have an interaction with a police officer that could fucking murder you, um, or just, you know, ensnare you into the criminal justice system. And
Right.
also, blinkers are like headlights and blinkers for most cars are crazy cheap and really easy to replace if you can do it. If this is interesting to you, start or look into pullover prevention groups, because I think it's such a cool thing. Um, but yeah, that was another thing where it's like cars are like, I'm pretty anti-car, but it's also like necessary for society, and it's this thing where it's like cars can actually be a thing that we can't are repairable, but people don't know how to do it. And that's another thing that's like, wow, if you could, like, if a garage was part of this thing, right? Like, you could have like
Mhm.
this like fucking worker owned nonprofit garage where it's like, maybe there's donation, maybe people fucking donate their old cars and we either strip them or fucking resell them, and the and it like is a worker owned thing, and then it's also like a nonprofit thing, and like every
Ugh.
kind of product would benefit, like everything would. I would only buy secondhand stuff. Like, I like working at Habitat and seeing the waste stream was terrifying. And it's a thing that I
Mm.
think about all the time, is how much fucking waste humanity produce, especially America, and like Western culture, but humanity in general. The amount of waste is fucking terrifying, and we are just throwing away shit that we could like repair or reuse. Like,
It's nuts.
and so it's like, if there was just this an organization that just like, and it's all free, it's free stuff that people want to get rid of, so it's just like, you have your like source of income and this thing you're doing that's really good, and then also you can tie in, like, unfortunately, recycling centers, like, obviously recycling is the worst form of like reuse. Like, we've been
Mhm.
lied to a lot, and it's not a profitable endeavor. But then that's another thing. It's like, well, then we could know, like, well, this isn't a thing that we do, but maybe we have contacts with people that, you know, I'm kind of
Right.
going all over the place with it, but it's
No,
yeah.
yeah. It would address so many issues on so many levels, ecological issues, um, racial justice issues, just poverty, like, access issues, so many things, like, because this shit's all fucking connected, and, like and yeah, to your last point, like, recycling is just, like, the least efficient way because there's
Mhm.
processing, most of it doesn't actually get recycled, all that stuff, um, and, living in a city, it's really nice because the population density is such that, like, you don't even need to do a Craigslist curb alert, like, you can just leave your furniture, if it's fine, in the back, if it's a nice day weather-wise, and somebody's gonna find it and snatch it up, and, like, there are people who that's their whole job is just kinda, like, patrolling, alleyways to, like, pick things up to either resell them or scrap them or whatever, and it's because there's no actual social infrastructure for these things, and so it's normally such a loss
Mhm.
because we haven't put those things in place, except for in places where there's just enough people that somebody's kind of filled that niche.
Yeah. That's my dream. I want to move to Chicago and make one of those. So if anybody
Oh,
wants to
that
steal
would be
it and
so
make one
sick.
in your area, that's my dream. It seems like a really natural thing, and there's a bunch of things kind of like it. There's it's interesting because I was researching in Chicago like reuse type stuff, and there's a bunch of stuff. There's already I found a website that like actually showed a bunch of stuff like reuse centers, like places that will take donations and then resell material. Like there was one when I looked into it that does building materials. There's an organization in Chicago that does computer repair kind of in a similar way.
Mhm.
um and so there's already like the idea of like, you know, fleshing out some of those, like, you know, some of those existing systems too. So I don't know.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, we have a few, yeah, small pockets of, like, really cool stuff like that here, but yeah, it's just such an opportunity to plug so many different social gaps.
Someday I'll be asking for startup money for that. So if you like
Yes,
that
seed
idea,
money. Yes.
someday you can donate and
Yes.
I'll make that someday. Roy
Ugh.
Christmas says my college has set up a small repair shop for bicycles runs by students for students, where you get free instructions and access to tools. That way you can repair your bike for free and learn how to do it. It's really cool. My only critic is that it's only accessible to the student and only advertised by mouth-to-mouth propaganda. Yes, I have heard there's one in
Mhm.
my area. I think when I was doing that research, there was one there's one in Chicago that is similar kind of thing. I don't know if that one's student. They're frequently student based. But yeah.
Yeah. In Columbus, they definitely there was, like, kind of a queer, mechanic shop that was very, like, about, imparting a lot of, like, basic car maintenance skills to women and queer people, for similar reasons.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just want to live in a junkyard and make stuff out of it.
Oh my
That's
god,
my aesthetic.
that's literally, like, you're, like, at the end of, like, Matilda, like, the Miss Honey, like, how like, that's your, like, storybook
Fuck.
ending, that's, like, where you
Uh,
belong, yeah.
yeah, that or like I mean there's so many like fucking uh Iron Giant. I just want to go fucking suck that bohemian daddy and live in his
Oh my god, yes,
live in his little junkyard and make weird
that's
art
the
or
fantasy.
whatever.
Oh my god, yes. Okay, so do you think we should try and tackle one more in
Yeah,
the
and
hour we've got left?
yeah, we've got almost an hour. So, and I think we can keep we yeah, that went in a lot of directions. So,
Yeah, but it just shows how interconnected all this stuff is by, like, capitalism and
hmm
yeah. Oh, and this one's gonna have a bit of an overlap too, because we were talking a lot about crafts and hobbies.
yeah, I was almost like, do we
What
want to skip because this one seems to I feel like we've kind of answered in
Sure, yeah, we
um
can.
just because I don't think we're gonna finish all of these, and I think it would be interesting to talk about music is a big thing that we could talk about.
Yeah, yeah, let's go ahead and do that because I think some of the holiday and sport talk and crafting talk touched on a lot of the leisure stuff. Yeah, so music. Do you wanna take that first or
Um, so yeah, what music did my parents share with me? For me, it was um my mom kind of likes everything. And I know a lot of people say that, but like I listen to some pretty weird experimental electronic stuff. Um, my probably the weirdest thing that but she would like enjoy it. Like the weirdest thing that I got really into was Mr. Oizo's album Half a Scissor, which a lot of people didn't. It's very weird, and I remember distinctly like showing it to my mom, expecting her not to like it, and she was like, "No, I'm into it." It's like
I've never heard of it.
this music is so fucking weird. How are you down for this? Um my so uh but my mom or my dad definitely had a lot of the classic dad music. Not so much dad rock, but he was into uh Simon and Garfunkel, um and I remember he was really into the Beatles. He got me into the Beatles. Um yeah, a lot of stuff like that. A lot of stuff like that.
Mm. My dad, he was mostly like a top 40, whatever was on the radio listener. But the things that he really put me onto were Meatloaf and Shania Twain. Those were the 2 things that were really, like, I really loved listening to Meatloaf with him, but things like Paradise by the Dashboard Light and, I'll Do Anything for Love, like, story songs. I really
mm.
liked that about Meatloaf, I remember.
Mhm.
Um, and he just really liked Shania Twain because he had, like, a crush on her or something, but, like so, like but also, again, like, these kind of long, elaborate kind of country songs, so, like, that don't impress me much, like, those were things that I, like, memorized all the lyrics to as a kid. Um my mom's music was all that she exposed me to was a lot of, R&B, Motown, um, disco. So she introduced me to, like, Sylvester's "You Make Me Feel," like, these really, like, kind of she went to discos a lot as a teen,
Very
um,
cool.
and went out, very cool. So she introduced me to a lot of that kind of, like, very queer dance music from that time period. And then in the '90s, in terms of what was kinda coming out then, she was really into neo soul. So Jill Scott, India Arie, Erykah Badu, like, all those kinds of things, like, she really put me on to. She listened to, like, The Quiet Storm, um, uh, at night and things like that. Luther Vandross at Christmas, we'd also always listen to the Luther Vandross Christmas album. Like, that was the kind of stuff that she really basted me in. So I missed a lot of, like, white music
Mm. Mhm.
culture growing up. Just all of the music, genres that she really connected to, were Black music genres, and so I have, like I'm thankful that I just happen to have, like, a little bit of a deeper, literacy on some of that stuff than, just a lot of my, like, white peers, so that was
Totally.
cool. Yeah. So there I did not know rock for anything. I did not know. I didn't listen to any Beatles. I was like, "What is this?" Like, I didn't know what any, like, dad rock bands were or anything like that until I started becoming, like, an indie rock pretentious asshole in the early 2000s myself. Um, and then my grandmother, my dad's mom from Appalachia, she really, put me onto a lot of, like, fucking I don't know. We would listen to some Jimmy Buffett, we would listen to some Lee Greenwood, we would listen to some, what's his name? I'm blanking on his name right now, the old man with the braids, who's like a country singer. Um, Not Waylon Jennings, but the other one.
Willie Nelson?
Willie
Not
Nelson. Yeah, we
okay.
listened to a lot of Willie Nelson. Those were my big, touchstones. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
I definitely feel like this is still a way, and I think it's because I mean, we can talk about how the music industry has been in the past, 5 to 10 years and how worrying that is. But I think it is a thing that is again, it's a thing that can be kind of like consumerist. Like it can be sold to
Mhm,
you. And so it has been kind of preserved in our culture. Um and I don't say that to mean it. I think it's really it's good that there is still um uh and I think it a tradition of, you know, sharing music with people um and yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great way to have, have connection with people.
yeah. It is true though that it has become more and more consumeristic, like, people used to, like, buy sheet music and play it at home with their
Mhm.
families, like, before the radio, and now it's become more and more a big industry that you identify with through your consumption. And now we're in the era of like stan culture where like that is even more like it used to be there was a lot of identity wrapped in genre that
Yeah.
people listen to or like subculture by genre, which a lot of cool things have arisen from that, from whether disco, punk, whatever. But now it's like, no, I'm a little monster. I'm a lamb. I'm a
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a
Fucking
bunhead, whatever.
the little bit I know about K-pop and the K-pop industry in Korea is fucking terrifying. That shit is like they're just little like totally controlled by these like corporations and
They're
I don't
not
know.
allowed to date.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's fucked up.
It's
And
scary.
I love a lot of that music.
Mhm.
I like a lot of K-pop a lot, and it's been such a huge influence on American pop music, and it
Mhm.
itself was influenced a lot by American rap and hip hop music. Um, so there's like a lot of cool things going on there, and a lot of like problematic things in terms of like who gets radio play, who's considered acceptable as a rapper versus who's not, whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, but also there's like the stan fan cam culture that like goes so hard. Um,
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I think that I I don't know what there is to say about it. It's but I do think it's really interesting the way Taylor Swift has become honestly feels like dominant in a way I don't know if it's dominant in a way that is completely new or maybe just hasn't existed in a long time. Like I literally don't know what that means or what it says, but it does feel like Taylor Swift's cultural dominance in America right now is something that we either haven't had ever or maybe just haven't had in a long time. And I don't
yeah,
know what it is about Taylor Swift specifically or
it
I
it was
yeah.
pre-planned. I mean, that's Context Machine, may he rest in peace, his take, like, he really thinks, and this was if he was around now, like, the Travis Kelce stuff would be even more evidence of this, like, she's positioned herself as Miss Americana, Miss default American culture. He thought she was gonna run for president one day, and I've heard other people say that subsequently, and I think
How old is she?
they're probably she's, I think, 33. Or wait, yeah,
So
no, wait,
sh
34 because she was born in 1989 because the album's
so yeah, she can't even
so
she couldn't even run yet. So if that were
she couldn't run
true,
yet.
so if that was true that we wouldn't know that yet like
Right, that he thinks it's this long-term plan to, like, seed the ground to
uh
eventually do that. And I think he's probably was right, like,
it's interesting. I mean, just since we started doing
yeah.
this show, like we that was one of the first streams we did where we were joking about Taylor Swift being transsexual or whatever and
Mhm.
I mean the cultural discussion around her is so much different than it was last year. It's
She's literally, like, hegemonic, like,
yeah. Yeah.
it's yeah, I mean, yeah, and Alex, Avila has a YouTube video about this that is super interesting, talking about her as like the prototypical millennial. Like she's the best way to understand millennial culture is through the different ways that she's positioned herself throughout the years. So the video title is like this is not about Taylor Swift, it's about you.
Mhm.
Um really really good video essay, it's like 2 hours, so get some get some popcorn. But
What's it called? I'll link it.
this video is not about Taylor Swift. This video is about you. I can also pull it up by Alex Avila, um, who also had a great video about self-diagnosis on TikTok that I was contributed to. Um,
Is this the person that was referenced in the H bomber guy video
yes,
and did
yeah.
the what was it?
Are
Like
they gay video
yes.
series?
Yes.
Hmm. He is so talented. The amount of different things that he synthesizes in this video. He was a big Beatles stan. He used to write Beatles real person slash fic. So he talks
So
about
of
that.
course
He
you're a
talks about
fan.
Beatlemania. So he talks about that versus like Taylor Swift cultural prominence. He talks about how just like every phase or era of her brand identity reflects different stages of like the millennial consciousness economically and like socially. Fucking brilliant. It's like it's crazy. Like this this dude's a genius. But yeah, so I think there is some insane strong. thing happening that is terrifying.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is. But it definitely it feels like, again, we're talking about culture and whiteness and American mainstream culture. It feels like really appropriate to at least mention that as being part of it. And
Yeah. And I literally, not to be frothing at the mouth, but like I really do think so. Context Machine would always talk about how she just makes herself this like blank slate that anybody can project themselves onto, and she has songs that are literally about that.
which
And
is
so that's why you get some.
which is pop music. I think that is you know, the industry of pop music in general, like not solely, but I think that, I mean, you know, I think about
Mhm.
that one, what's that fucking Bo Burnham song, uh
Yes, where it's like
uh
the really generic, like your eyes are so blue green in a brownish way, like so that anybody
yeah,
can.
right, like, I mean, that is a huge, not the only, like, you don't have, like, definitely not the only topic of pop, but it's certainly
Mhm.
um yeah, a huge part of it. um
Yeah, or even like boy bands, going back to the K-pop thing, like they would have different archetypes, or like Spice Girls. So
yeah,
you could pick
yeah.
your Pokemon, who you are. You
Right.
a posh? Are you a sporty? Whatever.
But anyway,
Yeah.
continue about, yeah.
Um, so I don't believe in the Gaylor theory, but I do believe that she could be like one of those like evil autistics. I mean, as a evil autistic, like manipulator, masker, whatever. Like, there's just so much identity craft that goes into being a pop star. And if somebody has like the whiteness, the thinness, the conventional attractiveness, the coming from a country background, so you're a little bit more appealing to conservatives, but you espouse liberal politics, it's like this, like House of Cards chess master move to like be the white girl to end all white girls that can
Yeah.
be relatable to the maximal number of people and to like play that the most strategically. It's just like it's nuts.
I can see it. The idea, whether or not it's true, the idea that she is the long game is to run for run for president, I think is really, like, whether or not that's true, I think it's like clarifying in that, like, the idea that that is some measure of the goal is to be, like you're saying, this perfect millennial, like, distillation of millennial white girl, like, yeah, it's interesting.
And it does reflect, like, again, like the cultural consumerist moment that we're at now, that like who you are is what brands you identify with
Mhm. Mhm.
on a narrower scale than like ever before. It seems like
Mhm.
my recent history. Yeah. Um, Photo said, I wanted to be Crazy Spice as a preteen. As an adult, I think I'd be a sporty. I thought I was a posh because she was mean
That tracks.
and
That
monotone.
um looking at some other answers.
Yes.
Gav says, my grandma got me into Broadway musicals. I remember her giving me the cast albums for more mature musicals when I was a kid, and my mom getting mad when she found them on my MP3 player. Roy Christmas says, music they like mostly. My father listened to the radio a lot, so a lot of chart adjacent stuff, but like 10 to 20 years behind the actual charts. My mom also included Turkish and Kurdish music and folk songs you can sing with children. I had like a songbook for children that I loved singing from. I never really liked this thing of my parents consciously following certain musicians. The only contact I had to more alternative music was through my mom somehow befriending a goth polycule. That's amazing.
That's
Um,
cool.
God, that reminds me of a huge aspect of a thing that I don't know. I can't believe my mom played music. So she sang a lot when she was in her 20s. And growing up when I was a really young kid, she had a guitar and she played and sang guitar for us when she, like, I have this very distinct memory of we would have bonfires, and we, like, the family would go out and like, because we lived on a larger like on like kind of like farmlandy stuff, like kind of land, and we would have fires, and my mom would play like hippie like folk songs. Like the one I remember a lot was, I don't remember the name, but where have all the flowers gone? Where
Uh,
have all the flowers gone? Long
oh,
time. Da-da-da. And it's like they yeah, and other stuff too. That's the one I always remember. But other stuff like that, like classic hippie folk songs that like um yeah, that's definitely a part of my a thing that she passed on.
did you play any instruments, or do you play any instruments?
So now I didn't I did a little bit growing up. I played bass guitar a little bit. I never got very far with it. Um but I did, and I don't play any instruments now. I want to get more into it. But I make electronic music for the past, like as an adult I've gotten into electronic music, like originally in Fruity Loops and now in Ableton. I haven't done it as much in the past year, but I did release a song a couple years ago that you guys can all, I don't know if I've talked about it on the show much, but yeah, go Test Device on
Yeah,
SoundCloud. You can listen to my
Position Light. Yeah,
yeah. So
good.
yeah, that's the thing that I that I've done some that I is important to me, even if I don't always practice it.
Mm, yeah. I was in orchestra since I was a kid, playing the cello, and I did for a while. There is a kind of, a community orchestra here in the city, citywide orchestra that's a little bit more like casual drop in. Gavin used to be in it actually, that I've always meant to go to and then have just not, because hauling a cello all
Yeah.
the way out there is kinda hard, and
Do
I've
you have one?
I pro I had my same one, since high school. It's a three-quarter size cello that I got as a kid, um, and I used to be too weak to tune it myself, which now I
Yeah.
probably actually could, so I could get back into it, but there was just yeah, it's sad because I really liked the feeling of being in a groove, like, as part of a orchestra, but I always hated hearing the sound of myself playing, like, if anything was off, I was just so embarrassed.
Mm. Mm.
Um, so I wish I had nurtured that a lot more than I have.
Talk about practice, culture as a practice and as doing things with a in a community, is that I think that's such a beautiful, again, a thing that I think is like not a thing we do as much traditionally now, but I think is such a beautiful way to be in community with people.
Yeah. Gavin is talking a little bit about Citywide Orchestra in the chat. It has a lot of drama. I mean, I'm not surprised. Anything like small theater or whatever. But also says he takes lessons and does a quartet now. Um, Another one that like I wish, like I like to sing. I'm not a good singer, but I have a friend who does voice lessons specifically for like she studied a lot of the science on like the trans voice, especially on masculinizing hormones. So I could take lessons from her, and like she's very like everybody has a voice, everybody can sing, um, and like gay men's choirs, like especially the one here in Chicago, like they do a lot of kind of poppy songs. I think it would be really cool to do, but again, it's
Yeah.
that stupid barrier of like, oh, I'm not good at it, so I shouldn't do it. But
I think that's
um,
capitalism,
yeah,
right? Like that is
yeah.
so much like if you're not, and I try to remember that about, my own music, cuz it's so there's this great quote that I read somewhere about like anybody who does art gets into it because they have good taste. Like
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
do
it's from
it.
Ira Glass.
Is that
Yeah,
Ira
Ira
Glass?
Glass wrote
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, you get into it because you have good taste, and like you're never it's your music, your like art is never going to live up to that, because that's just all we like. I mean, most musicians at the top level musicians still talk about how they, their own music is not up to what they want it to be. It's like that's, but just remember, and a huge part of that I think is like capitalism. It's like well, it has to be
Mhm.
perfect or else it's not worth making. And it's like, fuck no.
Right.
Bad art is so good. It's so important,
Yes. It's so
especially if,
earnest.
especially when you're doing it with other people. But, uh,
And that's how people just used to make art. People used to tell stories around the fire. They
yeah.
used to play music at home. Things didn't have to be this perfect marketable product. So, yeah. Um, yeah, it's hard to get over that hurdle, but it's true. And, like, just for me, even growing up, like, one of my weird autism things is I can learn song lyrics really easily. It just, like, happens. And, like, also, I just always used to even as a kid, like, my voice was, like, a little low, so, like, it was always very gender euphoric to, like, sing, like, a men's part or, like, a kinda lower, like, alto part or whatever. Like, yeah, it's fucking fun, and
Hmm.
it's stimmy, and it's good for your lungs. It's good for a lot of things, like,
Yeah.
there's a lot to it. Um Gavin says Lakeside Pride in Chicago is pretty chill for both orchestral music and singing. Okay, that's good to know.
I know there's a really good tradition of, did we talk about this? Like gay men's choir. It's like such a
Mhm.
thing. And maybe we talked about this last week, but like that being a really, there's a lot of queer, and those are traditionally less about gay men and more just queer in general. So it's like, especially
Mhm.
for people in our audience, that's a way to like, you know, get involved in a gay or queer music thing, is a way to do it in a way that's like maybe safer. And
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just a long-standing, like, cultural tradition, like, that intergenerational contact, like, there's men that have been in those choirs since fucking the '80s, '70s, whatever. Um, and yeah, they always perform at the, like, Pride Fest and things like that, and they're always really kind of moving to watch. I'm like, "Oh god," it's just really
anytime that I love like singing and like people singing together is so fucking good. I remember my mom
Yeah.
said that she was in a, she like sang with people, and I remember her saying that she didn't smoke weed in the 70s because she couldn't sing after she smoked. And so she like,
Oh.
people would like smoke weed and like they'd get together and like do their little they had like a little a cappella group or whatever. Like I think it was not like, I don't know if it was, I don't know if it was like they just got together and sang. And she was like, most people would like get together and smoke weed, and she never did because she couldn't sing when she fucking smoked weed, which is always an adorable
Aw.
story.
Oh. Y She just needed a good gas station edible. Some Delta 9 bullshit.
Giving up group music from COVID has been hard to lose that community. Yeah, that's really
Oh,
real.
yeah. Yeah, singing in particular was really hard because people are just blasting the fomites
Yeah.
when they sing.
Um, we can check. We can read off people's responses. Our wonderful
Yeah,
submitters. Um,
yeah. I have one from Cookie here. Where did I go? What music did your parents share with you? Lots of Christian music, toward which I hold some nostalgia, but that's mostly tainted by the religious abuse. Yeah, that can be really tough, holding both of those things at once. I still love Depeche Mode and The Cure and Pet Shop Boys and the like, which my mom shared with me. That's one of my few personal senses of having inherited something culturally.
yeah,
Um, this makes me think of my aunt who is 15 years younger than my mom. So she was like very much an 80s cool kid. And she was so she kind of exposed me to just like the androgyny of like 80s new wave and like pop music, like
very cool.
whatever, Human League,
Mm-hmm.
Boy George, The Cure, stuff like that. Like that was something that was very like, ooh, something is going on here? Like, why is it allowed to do this cool, edgy, gender bending stuff, but only in this one very specific pocket of the culture?
It's so funny to me that like there's this like, I don't know, conservative acceptance of like 80s music when it's like, I don't know. I'm thinking like I don't know. I'm thinking about like Kiss or whatever, where it's like this is
Yeah,
like really accepted culturally, even by conservatives, and it's like yeah, all that stuff, all that leather comes from fucking like gay leather communities, like
yeah.
explicitly.
This is the same aunt who this summer got drunk hanging out with my sister and was like, "Aren't you mad they took the rainbow from us?" Like, woman, she used to go to, like in the '90s, would go to, like, Marilyn Manson concerts and be like, "I gotta fuck him. I need to fuck
Really?
this man.
How do
I
you?
love his I love his pussy." Like, like, he had music
Oh,
video I mean, and obviously, he's an abuser, but he's fucked up.
right.
But, like, the aesthetic was very cool, very gender bending. He had videos of himself with a pussy and stuff like that. Trent Reznor, all that stuff. Like, yeah, how do you reconcile those things?
Total tangent, but I love that Trent knew that Marilyn was a piece of shit because they used to work together, and then
Yes.
they pretty publicly split, and no one really knew why. And it's like, oh, probably because he was a huge piece of shit that abused people, and Trent. Uh,
Yeah. Trant has a pretty clean record, like, especially once he got sober, he's been pretty, like,
yeah.
pretty fucking cool. Yeah.
Corian,
That's
well,
unfortunate.
it'll be a VOD, and we've been reading your submission. It's been thank you for submitting to you and the other people that
Yeah.
submitted.
Yeah. Um,
Um, uh, I just had it, and then I scrolled because I stimmed on my scroll wheel.
it's how it be. I've been playing with this, like, card holder that I stole from a ramen shop this whole time.
Oh, that's good.
It's real good.
That we need to like. I don't have good shit at my desk. We need to do like a stim check at the beginning of these streams. It'd be so
Yes.
good.
That's a
Uh,
good idea.
what are you stimming on? Yeah, that thing is crazy. It's articulated like a fucking Gundam, like
I know,
Gunpla.
that's why I had to steal it. Apologies to this ramen shop, but, like, I
It's
needed it.
so rude, but I
I
get
know,
it.
it's very rude, but I
Um,
tipped a lot.
Photoponymous in submitted. I grew up listening to classical music, Billie Holiday, and American Graffiti soundtrack, so similar kinds of stuff. Um,
Cool. We gotta
uh,
hydrate, redeem, by the way.
oh yeah. Bo Beebs, my dad likes Billy Joel and Journey, and my mom listens to nothing or top hits.
Hmm.
So, and Corian, my dad is a musician, poly instrumentalist, and I started playing an instrument at the age of 3 or 4 because I love watching and listening to him play. I was classically trained throughout
Wow.
childhood, but stopped playing in classical environments or orchestras when I started post secondary education because I didn't have the bandwidth. I miss it a lot. My dad still plays in an orchestra and sings in a choir. Yeah, I definitely think that um, there's a lot of that, like, parental vicariousness that can happen with music in the same way that we kind of touched on with sports, where it's this like it becomes, like we said, this like grind set culture. You have to do
Mhm.
everything to the max thing.
Yeah, and that you can't just do something just because it's fun and playful, like, you need to always spend your time on the things you're good at,
Right.
and you should feel good for, like, having fun. Yeah. It's fucked up.
We really truly live in a society.
Yeah.
Um
Um, s uh, Deathbot mentioned one thing we haven't really talked about is, like, concerts or, like, going out to music, and Deathbot mentioned that, in the chat.
yeah.
I went to a ton of shows with my parents and then with friends. COVID making me not do that anymore
Yeah.
almost always has sucked. I did go to a Coheed and Cambria show with my mom last year. I love Coheed
Ah,
and Cambria.
that's fun.
That shit's so funny.
Yeah, we've talked I think we've talked about how we met at a concert. We've probably talked about that, and that was a way that
Mhm.
we went Went to a bunch of Dorian Electric concerts together. That's how we first got to know each other. Um, and then started hanging out online as COVID hit, starting with a Minecraft 100 Gex show. Um, was that Lavapalooza?
I think so. And then there were
Yeah,
some in Second Life and some in Zoom that we
yeah,
went to.
a lot in Zoom was really fun. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I love concerts. I didn't go to any concerts with my parents. And then, but it was a thing I started to get into as a teen. Demph was huge for me, Detroit Electronic Music Festival or Movement um, was really important
Oh,
to me.
yeah. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know you went to
Yeah,
those, but of course, yeah.
yeah, I went to that like starting really young. I was probably like 13 or 14 when I first went to it, and I went to it every year for a while. Um, and that was a really important thing for me. Um, and yeah, as an adult now, recently I've gotten back into going to concerts, primarily like hyperpop stuff because that's a thing that me and my spouse really like together. Um, but yeah, I never went. I never went with my parents. That definitely wasn't a thing I passed down.
Yeah. Yeah, the only concerts I went to with my parents were things like when I was really into Bare Naked Ladies in middle school, they, like, got me tickets for that as, like, a birthday present one time, and
Oh,
we both
that's cool.
we all went. Yeah, and things like that. Um, and my first, like, real concert was with some friends in high school, and we saw David Bowie, and Macy Gray opened for him, and she was stoned out of her mind and she started, like, an hour late and was, like, wandering around. It was great. It was a lot of
That's
fun.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say, like, going to concerts has always been a big social and, like, a social hub and a way to, like, connect with various subcultures and, like, build a culture, whether it's, like, local stuff, um, which, Chicago has a pretty robust scene, but then also just touring artists of various,
hmm Yeah, it's been
hyperpop, pop, things like that.
yeah, going to some smaller shows in like the Ann Arbor area has been really cool because they're just so there's I feel like I need to do that more because it's hard because it's like my tastes are kind of niche and it's a smaller scene because it's a smaller city, so it's not like there's a lot of stuff playing in the area that I'm really like interested in. But every time I do go, I have a great time, and it's interesting because the shows are so much smaller, and I feel like that would be a fun thing to pursue more, like get out of my comfort zone as far as like and investigate things that I might not necessarily listen to because I have found I've almost never I've like basically never regretted going to a concert, and I think that you can really like live music is so good that there's like so many things that I've enjoyed concerts of immensely that is not necessarily music that I would really listen to on my own. Um,
Totally. Yeah. I find it's, like, the best way to get into something new is, like, when you see it live and you're feeding off the energy of the crowd and just, like, the energy of the performer. There's so many things that I've been put onto that I would have not just, like, listened to
yeah.
at home and gotten into at all. Yeah, I really like that about, like so now I go to a lot of, like, big music festivals because it's just such a sample platter of that kinda shit, so, Pitchfork, Riot Fest, stuff like that here. Not Lollapalooza because it's a hell on earth. So big, but
My my first concert was the Misfits because my friends in high school were all stereotypical stoners with Misfits shirts
yeah,
and
yeah,
do not care that much about the music, but holy shit, was that a fun show? That shit was really fun.
yeah.
Pyrotechnics and shit.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I thought they were more, like, punky, so it would have just been, like, people bleeding and stuff like that, I don't know.
Yeah, they were very theatrical. It's been so long now, but I remember pyrotechnics and I think there was like I don't know, man. It's been so long, but it was fun. It's a little. I think Misfits is. I mean, it's definitely punky, but it's also I think a little got a little bit of that like '80s theatrical flair, a little bit.
Very cool.
Gogol Bordello is great. I Start Wearing Purple was probably man, I listened to the hell out of that song in high
I
school.
loved that guy. I loved just looking at him.
What a guy.
Yeah.
What a guy.
What a type of dude. Um, yeah, and yeah, my first like real like music subculture was very much the indie rock pretentiousness of like the early 2000s and like going on to blogs where people would like review things and be like, "Oh, you know, Pitchfork is for posers, blah blah blah." Like, you know. So I adopted a lot of viewpoints from just
I
stealing from people who were more pretentious than me.
Music was such a weird thing for me. I wish I had, because it was very unique to me. Like I had my the first seeds of my music taste came from my brother. He showed me like Nirvana, System of a Down, and shit like that. And then also like I specifically remember he showed me Aphex Twin, which is probably the biggest thing. And then I would spend hours just sitting at my computer with fucking Pandora when I was a teen.
Mm,
And so I very much like crafted this weird, very specific these very specific music tastes, but then I didn't know anyone else that liked that stuff. I probably could have found I liked I literally only found the term blog house like a couple of years ago, and it probably would have been really interesting if I had fucking known that. Speaking of which, there's supposed to be a new fucking Justice album this year.
mm. Oh, we're
What the?
so back.
We're so
We're
fucking
so
back.
back.
Did you hear the
We're so
snippet?
back. No, I haven't.
It's
Oh,
very cross. It's very
oh,
cross.
oh my God. Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
Medion.
oh my God.
Medion was the one that fucking first dropped the snippet, and it's like,
Oh, no. Oh my God. Oh,
yeah.
because that's one of my guilty. Like, I'm like embarrassed of like Maddie-On and like Porter Robinson and stuff like that. But
Why?
like,
Oh, I know that. I mean, I know they're all like. Porter Robinson is a sex creep, I think. Well, no, he's not a sex
no,
creep,
he's just friends with Lil B, who's a sex creep. But I
but
also, well, whatever.
also he has people in his band and was like
Oh,
they're
really?
transphobic. Ugh, yeah, it's
And his
dumb.
brother Nick Robinson was the one who whatever. But I still really like Porter Robinson. t- to me, he's an egg, and so anything he's going through, it's because of that. And
You do that a lot. You're like, all of my problematic faves are just rotten eggs, and so
yeah,
they could do no wrong.
that's
Man,
my fucked up.
okay,
That's
we
my gay
talk.
list.
This is again total tangent, but we talked about Kurt Cobain. Me thinking Kurt Cobain is a trans woman, and everybody
Oh,
got
that's
it's so.
canon.
That's what
That's
I thought.
canon.
Everybody got mad on Twitter about that this year or this
This
week.
has been happening. This is peak Twitter regurgitating 2014 Tumblr discourse because people have been drawing up, you know, pictures of Kurt Cobain in dresses, quotes from Kurt Cobain about like just that are just very eggy. Everything about the whole
His
vibe.
journals. He like literally gendered himself as female one time in his journals.
Yeah,
Like, I'm not gonna say he was for sure a trans person, and I think like
I
the stuff
will.
of
I will.
oh, it just was so weird
Like,
because I feel like I've seen that conversation on Twitter specifically of like, oh yeah, he was probably trans, and then somebody that is people think is cringe, some trans woman that people think is cringe like made a TikTok about it, and now everybody has always thought that it's super problematic to call Kurt Cobain trans, and I'm like,
it's
fuck off,
people
fuck off.
people always responded with outrage to it on Tumblr, like a lot of Nirvana heads, like, and not people even that were transphobic, people that are not consciously transphobic, right? They're like, "Oh, well, we shouldn't speculate about
I
this," you
literally
know?
today discovered Charlie XCX is not trans. You're so real for that photo.
That's so real. That's so ascended.
Corian,
Why isn't she?
she's not.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
How many people in the chat thought Charlie XCX was trans?
I think she's a straight woman even. And in fact, now she's like a Red Scare girl now, unfortunately.
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no,
I'm
I don't
sorry.
believe
I'm s
you. What?
I'll
What
tell
is
you,
she,
it's I
Catholic or
will
something now? What?
she's literally besties with the Red Scare girls. She's, like, become problematic. Like, I don't think she said much publicly, so you know, whatever.
Charlie?
But like, I know, I know. We're having a lot of
PC
people are freaking
Music's Alex,
straight.
what is his fucking AG Cook's best friend, Charlie XCX?
You mean EGG Cook?
EGG Cook.
No, that's what's so sad because she used to really platform. Like she had a collab with Dorian Electra that put Dorian on the map. Dorian Electra was one
Yeah.
of her opening artists. Like she's besties with all these people, but apparently she's like a Red Scare girly now.
What
So
the
I don't
fuck?
know. I still like her shit. Crash slaps. Like I like her. You know, she hasn't said too much shit publicly that sucks. So hopefully it blows over. But like, yeah, I she might have been one of those straight girls who just had cool queer friends and then became Catholic or something. Um, she also toured with Taylor
Straight?
Swift. Straight, everybody's like getting punched from every direction. Like, wait, she's a woman? She's she's straight? She's Red Scare? Yeah.
I know people say that about Slater. People are like, she's not a trans woman.
She is bi though, and
Uh,
she is problematic.
uh, Red Scare Girl. Red Scare is a podcast that is like, I feel like I don't get it. I don't
It's
know
very
it.
toxic. They're
It's like,
dirtbag left, post left.
but now I feel like they've gone pat. Like they were nominally
No, they're
that,
not
but
anymore.
now they're not even that. They're
Oh my
like
god,
why I
yeah.
left the left people, and they're like
Mhm.
Catholic, but they're like that trad cath. Like they're mad at the Pope this week for saying you can have sex and with people.
Mhm. It's so annoying. Like, yeah, they're like in there with like, you know, they're gonna be Clementine Morgan friends probably at some point. So like just that whole melange of like I'm
Yeah.
criticizing the left, but actually I'm just gonna become conservative.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I don't get it. I don't quite understand it, but that's
Well, some of it comes back to the like cultural void. Like a lot of people that
yeah.
and when they talk about the Catholicism thing and some other like post left turned trad cath people that I followed, they like are all about like I love the rituals, I love the ornate art, I love the rich history. And it's like, you mean the Crusades? Like, what? I understand the
Yeah.
art spanks, but can we please just defile that art instead of like legitimately believing in it? That's so weird. Like
Yeah.
it's like the worst version of the return to your ancestry white person searching for authenticity, searching for ritual and cultural meaning thing, it
Yeah.
seems to me that a lot of
Completely
people.
tangent, but I learned a fucking insane thing. Uh Not even a tangent, just a thing I just remembered I wanted to say on here because it was fucking insane. Uh I learned that the word gauze comes from the word Gaza. And
Yeah.
because it was like the obviously what we use as gauze now is different technologically than what originally when it was invented, and what was the I'm imagining what was the dark ages in Europe when
Mhm.
the Muslim world was not having a dark age and having their Renaissance stuff. But yeah, it literally comes from Gaza because that was where it was invented. I saw that on Twitter and was like, no, that's not real. And I looked it up and had it uh, confirmed by, you know, dictionaries or whatever. So that shit
Yeah, very cool.
fucking cool and upsetting in a, in like a metaphorical way.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like it's this region that's just been and people that's just been like constantly wounded and
Yeah.
barraged. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Um but anyway, we're coming in the end. How many I feel like we did more questions than last week.
Yes. There's so many that are still really interesting that we have not gotten to that I would love to return to at some point.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe this is. I mean, this could be like this could just be the show is like talking about this because it's. I mean, it's already part of like. I think that talking about culture is like a big part of what we do. So it's like this is very
mhm,
much. Yeah. This. I mean, this could just be the show is about this, but yeah, it's really
yeah.
interesting. I keep if you still like I said, even if this is if you're watching this on the VOD, if you want to submit your answers to these questions, please do. I have them all on their in the Discord. So if you
Mhm.
scroll up in the announcements page on the Discord, all the questions are there. Feel free
We
to
just gotta. Oh, sorry.
no continue.
Or we gotta show pets, show dump truck. Just
Oh
so
yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, let's get dump truck to end this out. I would like to see the baby. Oh my god, that would be a really good. I need that on my board for show pets. We can see Grogu right now in Devin's background. Um yeah, while I'm thinking about it also again, I look at the baby. I would like to see the baby.
That would be a really good bumper.
That's what I was saying.
If it would just play automatically when people did that redeem, that would be so good. He was really mad at me, guys. I've significantly damaged our relationship just now.
I would like to see the baby.
Literally. Um, but yes, we have some different programming planned for next week. On
Yeah.
Wednesday night, we're going to be talking with that Callisto, our mod and friend,
Yes.
about being a system and just a ton to do with that and Thomas the Tank Engine lore
Yes.
because it's our resident expert on that. Um, I think it's going to be great. I'd say that it's something like system stuff and like related like variant kind of stuff is something that I have a lot of questions about because I think it's one of those things where it's like if I learn about it at all, I'm gonna be like, oh shit.
This better not awaken anything in me.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, we'd love to if you have questions or experiences related to being a system uh we would love to hear that or get your questions or yeah, so please submit those again, Piscord or ask boxes. Yeah, that'll be this Wednesday at, did we decide a
Mhm.
time?
At like 5:30, I think CST or something like that.
I think that's
Kind of
that's
early-ish evening. Yeah, 5:30. Yeah,
5:30 CT.
5:30 on Wednesday CT. Yeah, 6:30 ET.
So watch out for that.
Yeah,
And yeah. Thank you so much. This has
yeah,
been a really fun couple of streams.
yeah, yeah. This has been so good, y'all. Like this has been just such a treasure trove of just rich conversation and things to think about. Like it feels like we could be in like a graduate level class seminar where we just keep talking about this stuff like every week.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm loving it. Yeah.
That's
Uh,
yeah. So hit us up.
yeah.
Let's see if we have anybody to raid. Uh, let's let's jump into John Wolfe.
Yeah.
He's a favorite. He's a favorite of mine.
Sure.
I love his he's a good egg.
Yes. Oh my god, he's vibrating.
Oh, he was so mad too.
I know. He's being pretty calm now.
So yeah, say hi for us.
Yes. Give the wolf a little awoo.
Yeah. All right. Well,